Tonight with me is Moohoodles. She is a partnered streamer on Twitch. Been streaming for 10 years now. Really big into astronomy, science communications, quite skilled and expert at networking. You also have a background in coding as well, right?
Yeah.
And much like myself, you have ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
So, for all of us that don't know who you are or are curious or want to know about you, tell us who in your eyes is Moohoodles.
Oh my gosh, I feel like that's not my elevator pitch. Well, no, I guess it is. So I'm Moohoodles. I, like Finn said, have been streaming for a decade on Twitch. I do science communication on outer space and astrobiology. I was one of the pioneers of science communication on Twitch, actually, so I kind of brought my love for space and everything onto the platform. I also play video games from retro up to newer stuff. I've always been very variety streams. We also talk about sharks and conservation and programming on my stream. My degree is actually in computer science, so I like to nerd out and talk about like the computer science applications in astronomy and stuff too. And yeah, I guess that's the gist of it. If I were to get all like professional or whatever, I guess I could say, some people kind of think of me as a like Carl Sagan mixed with Miss Frizzle, who contagiously snort laughs.
Miss Frizzle, that's the magic school bus, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God, I love it. That show was messed up sometimes.
It really was. She's awesome though, and I do feel like I have like her enthusiasm and like her energy a lot of the times. But I feel like it's still not, I don't know. I feel like I can't compare myself to Carl Sagan because he's just my absolute idol.
He is incomparable, but I still think it's a valid basis of comparison, at least.
Oh, thank you.
To give people an idea. So, okay, so you said that you were part of the process of pioneering SciComm or science communications on Twitch. What exactly did that entail? How did that happen?
So yeah, way back in my day on Twitch, back in 2014, is when I started streaming. I just always really loved space. So like, I think Twitch is always about, well, at least back then, it was more like playing games and just having conversations with people. And I would just want to talk about the things I'm interested in. I mean, obviously follow the conversation, but I would talk about things I was interested in. And for a while, I guess more so in 2015, I remember playing like Fallout 3 and just nerding out about space and like maybe sending people to Mars and doing all of this cool stuff. So we would often have conversations about that. And that was before there was, I think it's before there was non-gaming categories. But it was definitely before there was a science and technology category because that was made in 2018. I could go through the history of it all. I don't know how like in depth you want me to go, but
These are deep dive, many hour interviews. So it's how deep you want to go.
That's fair. Okay. So I guess I started just with talking about it in video games because I really, really love this stuff. And it's a fun conversation and people were really into it. Like I remember back then my chat was just like popping off with people like talking about the possibility of living on Mars or like what if there's like, creatures still on Mars or something, which is like, my love for astrobiology. So yeah, I ran the astronomy club at my college for a while and I would bring those lectures into my streams later on. Once they came out with the IRL category, which is what like just chatting and everything else was before they made those categories. I'm wording this really badly right now. But yeah, so before like just chatting and ASMR and like travel and outdoors, there was like the IRL category. So I would bring my streams of science communication into that and just talk about talk through like a PowerPoint lecture that I made for my astronomy club, being like, hey, Jupiter's moon Europa and Saturn's moon Enceladus are really cool places to look for life in our solar system. And I would just nerd out and, I think people liked it for the most part and it was really fun. And so I kind of had like some dedicated segments, but I think for the most part, I still talked about it a lot, just like as I was playing games, just in kind of passive conversation, And then in 2018, and then in 2018, they made the science and technology category. And yeah, now I mainly stream in that.
So you were basically part of the visibility of that type of content before it actually was categorized on Twitch itself specifically.
Yeah, I would hope so. I think so though, because I have been doing it for a long time. Like whether or not Twitch knew that I existed and I was doing it, I was there and doing it. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So have you always been this passionate about like science, space, astronomy?
No.
Really? So
No.
okay, that's interesting. When did that start for you?
I mean, I will say I've always been that passionate about sharks. Since second grade, they were like my favorite animal and I was obsessed. But I feel like my love for space came a little bit later. Like I remember being a kid looking up at the sky and looking at the stars and being like, wow, this is like beautiful and fascinating. And like, you know, what is out there? Like the unknown has always drawn me in, but it wasn't something I like pursued or read a bunch of books about as a kid. In fact, I remember in elementary school, they had us do those like astronomy type lessons where we had to learn the constellations, and I hated it because we had to like poke holes into paper and be like, oh, this is clearly the serpent or other things. And I was like, I don't see this out of these dots. I'm not seeing these pictures. And I was not good at it. But later on, in, you know, the early to mid 2000s, I guess, I remember the Hubble Space Telescope was taking a lot of beautiful images, and they were being released pretty regularly. And I would just see them and stare at them and zoom in and look at every single little detail for hours and hours. And there's so many images I could like talk about right now, but I really loved it.
Do you have a favorite?
Oh my gosh.
Do you have a favorite?
I have two. So
okay, go on.
I really love the Hubble Deep Field. I think was life-changing for me, as it was with a lot of people, because that's like if you hold your arm, like if you hold a grain of rice at arm's length, that's like the area of sky that was covered in the Hubble Deep Field, and there's a ton of galaxies in that image, and it's so mind-boggling to think of. Like we're not the only galaxy. Like there's billions.
Isn't it like 100,000 galaxies in that tiny little spot in the sky?
It might be. I'm not remembering the number right now.
Abnormally high number.
Yeah. And it's so cool. And I feel like that just changed my life, because I was like, we are small and insignificant. And I know that stresses a lot of people out. But for me, I just find it fascinating, because it's like, we're just one little speck in our own galaxy. Like how many cool creatures are out there in all of these other galaxies? So this was like 13, 14-year-old Moo, like checking out those images. I remember having several nights of just like listening to music albums and looking at Hubble images, and especially between my World of Warcraft battleground queues for Burning Crusade, I would just like look at these images and check them out and be like, whoa. But yeah, I also really, really love the Carina Nebula, which is a like like a panoramic. They've stitched together a lot of different images. And like I have no words. It's one of the most detailed and beautiful space images, especially before James Webb Space Telescope launched. But even still, it holds its ground. It's just breathtaking, and it's huge, and you can just zoom in so far, and it blew my mind. I think that image might have been released in like 2007. I don't really remember, maybe 2009, but I love it. And I feel like that stuff really got me into space a lot more.
What about that specific image really did it for you? Why do you think you attached to it so strongly?
I mean, maybe just like the details, and like having like never seeing anything like that before, like the weird, like colorful and like wispy nebulas, like nebula stuff. Like I don't even know how to explain it. There's just so many like shapes and different things. And back then I didn't know what any of this was. So I was like, what is this? Like what causes this? What is going on here? And I don't know, it just blew my mind. And knowing that it was like such a huge, massive, like, you know, object and stuff too. It's like, I think it's mind boggling, especially, you know, as like a hormone filled teenager who's like angsty, like looking at this beautiful image is like, whoa, like I I don't know. I feel like I still kind of struggle to put it into words because it's just so awe-inspiring.
Awe-inspiring.
Yeah. Yeah.
What did it do to your like perception of like our presence in this universe and this planet?
Ooh. I feel like, oh my gosh, I feel like I could give such a big answer because that's kind of like developed over time for me. Back then, I think it was just like, there is no way. Looking at these images, especially Hubble Deep Field, like there's no way that we are alone in the universe. And like my love for astrobiology came a bit later, and we can get into that too. But yeah, back then it was
I have a list, don't worry.
Okay. But yeah, back then it was like, there's no way we're alone in the universe. Like, look at all of this.
So did it make you feel like less isolated or lonely or anything like that? Or was it something else? Was it more profound than that?
I don't know. I don't know if I had any huge, like, I feel like I was really philosophical as a teenager. Like, I actually wanted to major in philosophy and photography in college.
It's very, very Sagan-esque.
I guess so. But yeah, I would think about things a lot. I don't know if I ever really thought about like our place in the universe as much as like, I feel like I more so got that kind of like fear or angst of like, wow, like we are a tiny speck, like everything is insignificant, which doesn't sound great. And, you know, I feel like I have a better view about things now where like, you know, maybe that vastness of space just means that, you know, maybe our problems aren't as stressful and as big as we initially thought.
Positive spin on it. I like it.
Yeah. Like, I think it took me a while to kind of come to terms with it, but it's also like, I think the thing that gets me excited about space and kind of what I really took in as a kid or as a teenager, whatever, is that there is so many things out there like waiting to be discovered. There's so much unknown and so many things that you don't know, and we're never going to know it all, at least not in my lifetime, you know, like, and that just fuels me and just drives my like insatiable curiosity about the universe of like what is just waiting to be discovered, what is waiting to be known, like what new telescope are we going to send out and we're going to have like this huge epiphany similar to like the Hubble Deep Field or something. Like I don't know, I just think it's so fascinating. Yeah,
it sounds to me like if this was a few centuries ago, you would be one of the people wanting to discover new continents. Whether you are recognizing it or not, you're hitting on the idea of exploration as at its most basic. Is that something that appeals to you?
Yes and no. So
okay, that's a complicated one. Let's hear it.
I love exploration. There's a Cosmic Gate song called Exploration of Space, and that was like my jam back then. So yes, you know, I was looking at the space images, listening to that song, and also PvPing in World of Warcraft. It was a good time.
Of course, Alterac Valley. I know it.
Yeah. But yeah, like I really love exploration and I love finding out new things in space. And I did think about that throughout my life too. Like I want to travel the world. I want to see what there is to be seen. And I want to like learn about other cultures and meet new people and do all of this. And I think discovering a place for the first time would be really cool. But I think we also have to be aware of like, there's probably already people who live there. And a lot, like the issue that I said yes and no to is because I think it's really important to take note that, you know, like there was people who came to America before Christopher Columbus, for example, and like there's Native Americans who have been here on this land for much, much, much longer. And so I would not want to be like a colonizing explorer.
Right.
Like that
was the word that came to mind.
Yeah. I'm not for that. And I actually talk about that on my stream every now and again when people talk about colonizing Mars and stuff too. And I think people get I think that's maybe the more controversial thing that I'll talk about on my stream. But
Interesting.
I will stand my ground with that one. I'm not, I mean, we can get into the Mars thing. I won't ramble off about it now, but I do love exploring, but I mean, I can go into it.
So, okay. It's interesting that you made that distinction because I wasn't thinking of colonization, but I think that that's important to bring up. because a lot of people see these old explorers as just that. And it's, even in the US, the history books tend to gloss over the, also uglier side of it.
Yeah.
So you talked about colonizing Mars. When is that an okay idea and when isn't it? Like, what's this distinction here that you stand your ground on?
So as much as I would love to have humans be an interplanetary species, I'll say that. But, and that conservation is often talked about in my stream. So here we go.
Yes, correct.
So sometimes people talk about they're like, oh, let's nuke Mars and give it an atmosphere and do this, do that. There's a lot.
Is that how that works? Okay.
I know it's not. But there's a lot of things that go into it. Like Mars doesn't really have a magnetic field now. It's not really suitable for life. Like if we're going to colonize it, it's going to be pretty brutal.
It's like what, 10% of our atmosphere as far as how much there is?
I don't even remember, but it's not great. And so I think if we were to send people to Mars, visiting it, sure, having a base on there, great, but fully colonizing Mars or trying to change the planet in and of itself worries me because, and I don't want to raise red flags saying this, but as someone who really loves astrobiology, what if there is life forms on Mars still? Mars used to be a more hospitable place. It used to have an atmosphere. It used to have water, lakes, rivers, whatever, or at least that's what our evidence so far tells us. And so if we were to go there, I think it would be intelligent to make sure that we're not contaminating Mars at all, especially if we were to drill underneath the surface to try to find drinkable water or something that I'm sure we would filter. Mm-hmm. But I would want to make sure we're not contaminating it. Let's check it out. Let's make sure there's no microbes there. And if there are, I don't care if it's a single-celled organism. I want to respect that. And that's life on another planet, on another body in the solar system, in the universe. That's a really big deal. And I don't think we should mess with that, I guess. But like I said, I do like the idea of humans being an interplanetary species, but that kind of raises up my second point of, I think a lot of people look at going to Mars or going somewhere else in space as an escape from Earth because, oh yeah, our planet's not going to sustain our life forever or whatever, right? I feel like I see too often the argument of people saying oh, well, there's a backup planet. We can just go to Mars. We have the technology. We can do it. And that is not an excuse to not take care of our planet. I think people forget we're on this rock hurtling through space. It's the one place we know of that has life on it, the one place we know of for sure that can harbor life. And we are just polluting it and just absolutely not taking care of it whatsoever. And that's kind of where the conservation talks come into my stream a lot too, which I'll also talk about sharks and ocean conservation. But we really, really, really need to take care of our planet and not look at Mars or some other planetary body or even a space station or something as an escape. This is all we have. We are all all of humanity, everyone you've ever known, everyone who's ever been in a history book, everyone is from here. And sorry, I feel like I'm reiterating Carl Sagan's Pale Blue Dot speech, but yeah, we really need to take care of our planet. So I don't like the argument that oh, we can just go to Mars. It's fine. It's not because Mars isn't made for us. Mars is not going to embrace us with a beautiful atmosphere and great plants and all of this, yeah, it would be brutal. I hope that makes sense.
I think so. Is there a point in which it is fine?
I mean, I think if we take care of our planet and if we take care of our planet and there's definitely for sure no life on Mars, which would be surprising, but from my knowledge, I think that is a possibility. Maybe in some of the lava tube caves or under the surface, there could be microbes or, single-celled organisms or something, and that would be so cool. But if none of that stuff exists, yeah, sure. I would love to see it. And I think even if those things do exist, there's a way to quote unquote colonize Mars, where it wouldn't be really awful to do. Like, I don't think we should just ruin Mars and try to give it an atmosphere and everything like Earth. But I think, you know, having like bases on Mars and having a human like settlement on there, I'm more okay with. But like, I just want to, maybe I sound really weird right now. Like, I just want to respect the planet and like what could be on it. And I know people have very, very different views on this. And like, I really do want humans to be an interplanetary species, but I want to make sure we're doing it in the best way possible, especially looking at our history on Earth when we've gone to new places. It's not okay. And I don't want to repeat that again, even if it is just little organisms, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
So effectively, what I'm seeing is a distinction between settlement and terraforming, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So from your point of view, like, let's say we do go to Mars, there's no life, or we find somewhere on Mars that there is no life, and we build like weird hypotheticals, like we have like a big dome and a crater, right?
Yeah.
We atmospherize that and everything with respect to life. Is that where the line isn't crossed for you? Is something like that?
I mean, yeah, I think that would be cool. I like that. Like, terraforming, I think, makes me a bit more anxious because I think it's hard to completely, you know, rule out like life anywhere on Mars until we like fully explore it and check it out and stuff.
Which we haven't even done here yet.
Yeah.
We still, like, every day we find new life at like the bottom of the ocean. It's pretty wild.
Right.
So
It's so cool. It's so cool. But, yeah.
Okay, so let's say we find water on Mars, or, well, we know there's water on the moon, right? The dark side of the moon has tons of basically ice craters or whatnot.
Like the South Pole of the moon.
They never see the, yeah, that like it literally never sees the sun ever. Mm-hmm. So is that okay? Like, or does that brush up against the whole conservation ideal?
Wait, so if we found water on Mars, would it be okay for us to go there?
Yeah, or to even use the water, right?
So,
because it's interesting because these bring up a lot of scientific dilemmas that I feel like are going to be debated for a long time.
Probably. This is actually, I would love to like deep dive more and learn about a lot of this stuff one day and like write a book about it. Because I'm really passionate about this. And I feel like it's all really interconnected. Clearly. And there's a lot of intelligent people who are having this conversation as well, which is great. Mm-hmm. Like people who work in these fields and like have a say in this stuff. But
I mean, you work in this field just in a different way.
I guess so. I've been trying to accept that a bit more recently, so thank you. But yeah, I think if we, so I'm trying to remember the name of it. So NASA has this program, and I don't know why I'm forgetting it, but it's when they see like concepts of missions and they give it some funding to be like, yeah, look into this a bit more. One of the ones that was chosen this year in 2024 is one that would actually check out the water, like, or try to drill underneath the surface of Mars and find water and actually see if there's microbes in the water. So if astronauts eventually do go there, they're not going to be like contaminating or like drinking the microbes in this water source. And I love that idea. And I think it's so important. So maybe that is where I draw the line. Like, is the water completely sterile and there's nothing in it and there's definitely no life? Then okay. But I think that also brings up the point of like, maybe it's life that's not as we know it. And,
right.
You know, we would definitely have to make sure that we're properly checking it out. But, you know, I think if it's not just like, I assume if there would be life in like one little water reservoir or something on Mars, if that does exist, then it would probably be in other places too. So I think, you know, if we're like, oh, we found 50,000 lakes on the underneath the surface of Mars and they all have different, or like they all have similar species or something, like, I guess I just wouldn't want to drive some species to extinction, especially like unknowingly, if that makes sense. Even if it is like a single-celled organism, because I feel like that's a huge deal because that's the first life we would know of, like off of Earth. So I want to make sure that we respect it and like protect it and are able to study it too, because I feel like we would learn so much from that. Like, how cool would that be?
Do you think in our lifetime that it's likely we will find life outside of Earth?
I remember when I took an astrobiology course a little over 10 years ago, the professor said in the next decade, we will probably find life outside of Earth. And that hasn't come true yet, but I see why they said that. And I feel like in our lifetime, yes. But we also need the funding. And this is something I kind of talk about on my stream a bit, and especially a bit more recently. Because there's a lot of really cool missions that could go on. Like, for example, like Saturn's moon Enceladus has everything needed to harbor life, as far as we know, from the evidence that we have from the Cassini mission and everything else. But we haven't sent a follow-up mission there to like go and check it out and grab a sample and like do the actual like science and stuff that needs to be done to know if, you know, it does have life. And I am definitely an advocate for getting like the right instrumentation on spacecraft to go check out if there's life or not. And so I think maybe I'm struggling to remember, and there's probably something I'm forgetting right now. But I think the other day we read that ESA wants to send something to Enceladus, but that won't be until like the 2050s. Like these space missions take like 30 years to go from like, we want to do this to like, we're actually launching it. And I'm impatient. I want the answers now. You know, like I know it takes time, but I would really love to send something, just some small like CubeSat satellite, whatever we could do, just send it there sooner if it's possible. And I know the instrumentation wouldn't fit on something that small, because that would be like a CubeSat satellite's like what the size of like a toaster or something. So I feel like we wouldn't be able to send something there super soon, but I think in our lifetimes we could find life outside of Earth. Yeah, I think there's a lot of cool places in our solar system to check. It's just funding the missions that need to be funded to go look for it, in my opinion.
So mentioning funding, that brings a question up to me. Who do you think is going to find it first, a government or a corporation?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm actually really surprised that some corporations haven't hopped on that already. Like I'm really, really surprised.
Why?
Because I feel like, you know, some of the people who own the companies perhaps would like to have their names down in history books of being the company that found life outside of Earth. Like, but you know, maybe it's because it's more so focused on like rockets sending things into space and not on the actual like instrumentation that would be finding life. So for now, I guess I feel like it could definitely be a joint effort. With like, you know, NASA or ESA even collaborating, because I know they do that a lot, or whatever other space agencies in the world. Yeah.
ESA, that's European.
Yeah, sorry, the
Agency?
European Space Agency. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
because there's another ESA on Twitch that's like a European speedrunner assembly. So I know there's going to be some
that's cool.
viewers that'll be like, okay.
You're like, huh, what? Yeah, the speedrunners are going to speedrun over there.
No, that's interesting that you brought up, like, because that hadn't even occurred to me. I was having a very binary line of thinking on it, that joint effort between a government and a corporation.
I mean, yeah, NASA's doing that right now. I mean,
with SpaceX,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, like a lot of rocket launches, and even companies like Intuitive Machines just landed, and that's like kind of a newer one, just landed.
What's that?
I mean, that's a good question. I don't know a ton about them, but they launched the lunar lander that went to the moon for the first time in like over 50 years. Well, America going to the moon for the first time. And wow, I worded that really good. They launched a lunar lander that went to the moon for the first time in 50 years for America. And NASA paid them to take some of NASA's like instrumentation on there, so NASA could do science while they like landed on the moon, which is really cool.
How important do you think how do I phrase this? How important do you think profit will drive this kind of exploration?
ugh, I hate
I know
hate
it's a
that.
sticky one.
I hate that. Yeah. I
Whether you like it or not, yeah.
Oh, that brings up a lot, I feel like. Yeah, I'm
Well,
not
this
like,
isn't a race, so.
I mean, that's fair. Like I'm not a fan of that, but that is like the society that we live in. So I do feel like profit will be a thing, but like what profit is to be made from, like, being the first to find life out there. I know that there's profit to be made in, like, oh yeah, we can send something to the moon and successfully land there, so NASA will want to pay us as like the person who sends stuff to the moon, or other companies and stuff too. But I think maybe that's why some of the companies haven't done it yet. Like I guess, yeah, I don't really know what profit is to be made. It's just for pure knowledge and for the value of knowledge. And our world, sadly, does not run on that. Like everything has to have profits and stuff. And I'm not a huge fan of that, because I would love it if we were a bit more like scientifically driven and just wanted to learn things and know everything there is to know. And like maybe we'll discover really important and really cool things on the way too. But yeah, that's a tough question. I feel like if there's not profits, like if they're not making a profit, a company's not going to do something,
Right. It goes back to the topic we were talking about before, exploration versus colonization. What often drove the old explorers was a different kind of profit, the seeking out resources.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah. So what do you think? How much do you think that's going to play into it? Or whatever it is you were going to say, if you had a different thought.
No, I don't feel okay with that either. Like I don't want to go to Enceladus and try to find life just because we want like some resource there. Like everyone jokes about like how we're surprised we haven't gone to Titan more, because there's like hydrocarbon like lakes and rivers and stuff. Like
it's like an oil plant or oil moon, like, basically.
I don't know. I think, I guess it's also important to note that, like, asteroid mining is probably going to become a thing someday in the future. But right now, from my knowledge that I know of, it's not really feasible. Like, we might have the technology to do it, but it would cost so much more in like getting it set up to go mine an asteroid than you'd actually make from the asteroid. And asteroids are worth like a lot. I don't think we should be going around the solar system, or even eventually going around, the galaxy to just take resources. Like why should we do that? And we have a finite amount of resources here on Earth, and yet we're just driven by profits. We're not driven by like a need to just survive. And I feel like that didn't make sense. Like obviously in this in the world we live in, you kind of need profits to survive, to buy food with and everything. But it I don't know. It even bothers me in video games where you just go and take every resource off a planet. Like, why can't the planet just have that? Like, okay, if you need warp drive fuel, okay, take a little bit, but like, leave it be. Don't like just completely destroy this ecosystem in this one area or something. And like, that could go deeper into like conservation stuff on Earth too, of like, we're deforesting the Amazon rainforest, and there's a lot of stuff going on. And it's like, at what point and I mean, gosh, this is just a big ongoing topic, obviously, of like, where's a happy medium, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's, yeah, this is a hard one. I guess I could say more. I'm like,
what are you holding back?
I mean, a little bit.
Why?
Well, I just feel like it gets more like into economics, or almost like into politics than I would want to go into, or maybe a little bit more of like, I also feel like I'm maybe not as like well spoken on some of those areas too. Not that I'm super well spoken now, but I don't know. Like I'm sure people are For some reason now I'm all nervous about like the comments you're going to get on this video of people being like, "Moo, or you don't know what you're talking about," or something. But I know there are people working in these specific fields, like um, like ethics of space and conservation stuff with space, and even conservation biology here on Earth with, Amazon rainforests and putting up protected areas around Earth for wildlife and plant species and everything. So yeah, I don't know. I don't want to just explore around and conquer everything and grab the resources and do what we need to do. Like, I just want to be more scientific driven, I guess.
Yeah. So let's touch on that then, because you've really strongly emphasized this already. What drives your intensity so much for conservation specifically? Where does that come from?
The Eyewitness Shark book that I read.
Okay.
I checked out from the library in second grade.
Eyewitness Shark book. This is an origin story. Let's go.
I don't have it immediately near me, or else I would grab it and show you. I read it on my stream though once, and I really nerded out. But I think that's what got me into sharks, and that's what got me into conservation in the first place. And it's kind of been an ongoing thing. Like, no one's perfect with this stuff, but I think it's important to be talked about and to be aware of. So yeah, like reading that book, I don't know. It got me into sharks. It was one of those like books that you could maybe find at like a Scholastic book fair or whatever as a kid.
So what is it?
It's just like a book, I guess more so catered for kids. It's like, here's what sharks are. Here's all the senses they have. And here's some different species of sharks. And then you get to the end after being like, whoa, sharks are so cool. And they have a lot of like gory photos of like, here's sharks being finned and being killed. And they are an apex predator of the ocean, so they're really important. Yet they're being killed at unsustainable rates, and they're threatened, and we need to like take care of them. And that just like, I don't know, that hit something in me as a kid, and I wrote every single paper in school about sharks. Like from then on, like if anyone who ever went to school with me as a kiddo sees this video, they're gonna be like, yeah, that's the crazy shark lady. Like I really, and I gotta say.
So you saw go ahead.
I live in a landlocked state. I was not near the ocean either. So like I was just very vocal about it because, everyone's just scared of sharks, especially like from the Jaws movie and stuff too. And I kind of took it on me to be like, okay, like let's help educate people and let them know that maybe they don't have to be feared as much. So I think that kind of sparked my love for conservation in a way, because it was like, we need to conserve sharks. We need to take care of them. Like they're the apex predator. They're like really important for ocean ecosystems and even like reef ecosystems for sure. And so we need to take care of those. And then that kind of went into like, well, we need to make sure we take care of the entire ocean ecosystem. And, from ocean ecosystems, that goes into like Earth and all of the just everywhere. Everywhere. I hope that makes sense.
So it sounds like it had some rather visceral elements that created a pretty strong emotional reaction.
Yeah.
Which led to something positive. And you touched on the movie Jaws, which I thought was interesting because it leads into something I wanted to talk to you about, which is misinformation. And that movie created fear and panic over sharks when, what is it, like maybe 6 people every year die from shark attacks, if that?
Yeah, not many. Yeah, I know Steven Spielberg has actually mentioned that he kind of regrets making Jaws because of the like negative light that it's painted sharks in. And don't get me wrong, sharks are scary. I would not mess with them, but they're not going to hunt you down and murder you or something like is portrayed in Jaws. I've never watched Jaws, actually. I'm just going to put that out there. I refuse to watch that movie.
It's a good movie, but again, right, it's an unrealistic movie.
Yeah. And I mean, that's okay. Like a lot of movies are unrealistic, and I don't think it was made with the intention of like doing that, right? Like it's a good scary movie, so I've heard. But yeah, I think it just made people really scared of sharks, and not respect them as a living being, let alone a keystone species in like their ecosystem. And keystone species are really important for ecosystems. It's kind of what keeps everything together. So since sharks are an apex predator, they'll like, it kind of goes into like the food chain of everything. And this is stuff I feel like I haven't talked about in depth in a while. So I'm sorry if I'm not as like well spoken as I feel like I should be. But they being like, like I said, it goes into the food chain of things. So, if sharks are taken out of an area, for example, maybe this specific type of like ray would take over, but then it would totally eat this other species. And then maybe like, I don't know, like mollusks or something else would just take over. And then people can't fish and use that source or like use that area of water or something for like food for humans and stuff like that. So I feel like I explained that really poorly, but like everything in ecosystems are very intertwined, and it's not just like a food chain, it's like a whole web. And there's also like trophic systems. It's been a minute since I've taken this course in college, obviously. And I think it's really fascinating to learn about all of that though, because it's like everything really does play together and has its part. But keystone species like sharks and, like as apex predators are really important because they're at the top of the food chain. So everything else depends on them. So if sharks aren't there, everything else is going to go out of whack. Like some species will thrive, other species will die. And it's just, everything will be out of whack and it's not going to be like healthy and okay. Kind of like when the wolves were taken out of Yellowstone and stuff. So
yeah. It's like, they're like a controlling element basically for the whole ecosystem.
I mean, yeah, I guess, yeah, in a way. Yeah.
Because it sounds like if they're not there, then some other species is going to not be depleted as much as they were, start growing, then they start eating other things, whether they're species, plants, whatever. So I could see how that butterfly effect, just by removing one species, could really affect the whole. So that's basically what's happening. Like they're like a controlling element. That's what a keystone is? A keystone?
I suppose so, yeah. I should probably like Google it and pull the exact definition, but yeah. Yeah, they're like very critical to make sure. I guess controlling, I guess controlling is kind of like, I don't know. I guess that makes it feel like I don't want to say it sounds like a weird word choice. Like that does make sense. It's not that they're controlling everything.
Probably is a weird word choice.
They're more so keeping everything like in balance and in check, I guess.
That
balance
makes sense.
Maybe is a good word. Yeah.
Gives me very D&D druidic vibes about balance of nature.
I love it.
So going back to that whole thing about Jaws and the fact that, that movie unintentionally created massive misinformation about sharks in general. A big part of your streams is combating misinformation. How do you go about that?
I guess in a few different ways. One, just doing what I'm doing, I think helps combat misinformation. Just talking about science, talking about current news in space and astrobiology, I think helps. Answering questions for, I guess, the second point. A lot of viewers will come in and have a question about, something specific that they read or that they saw in the news, or maybe they just saw a very clickbait headline article. And hopefully, like, as a science communicator, I'm able to help them understand it and help them decipher it and help them learn about better sources for their information, like to get their information from at times too. And that's something I always make sure to do on my stream is mention like who's writing the article, when it was published. And there's even like links to scientific papers like on the majority of articles that we read. So I think, checking out your sources and stuff is really important. I feel like I almost feel like combating misinformation is something that happens a little bit more passively on my stream, but every now and again it'll be brought up with a viewer question that I'll take a bit more seriously. And it's really rewarding. I've had it happen a few times where people have come in with something very like, ugh. And I've taken a moment to nicely explain it to them, because like, let's be real, there's so much information out there, and it's really hard to know what's real and what's not, and like where this is coming from. And especially when you're just like scrolling through, you know, like, I don't know, random videos on Facebook or something, for example. And so I think it's important for people to feel like they have, especially members of like the scientific community, or just some friendly Twitch streamer who's a big enthusiast, to go to ask questions to be like, wait, I saw this. Is this like legit or what? And I think a lot of misinformation makes people distrust science, or makes them not like science, or not like, yeah, I think the distrust of science is big. And so I definitely try to navigate all of that stuff. But I do think it's rewarding when I'm able to answer someone's question and help change their point of view to like, from, you know, being like, oh, here's some misinformation thing I heard, like, oh, this is like, why are we spending money funding this thing or something? And then I'm able to be like, oh, well, there's some things that you actually don't know about. Let me explain, like, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, that's really rewarding.
Are there any specific scenarios you can remember where someone came in with some misinformation like that, and you were able to at least present them new information that they internalized?
I think, I mean, I just had it happen like last week or 2 weeks ago. I think one of the more common ones that I had for a while, though, was people being like, oh, so the James Webb Space Telescope found galaxies that are like really, really old, so the Big Bang didn't happen. And I was like, wait, I'm sorry, what? No. Like, hold on. It just means that maybe galaxies formed in our timeline of the universe sooner than we thought. Like, the Big Bang still would have happened. It doesn't say anything about the Big Bang. It just says galaxies formed a few 100 million years sooner than we expected. And we know our cosmological models are off. Like, there's issues with the lambda CDM, is what it's called. Like, you know, there's issues with it, and that's a big thing in like cosmology and everything that they're still learning about. And science is an ongoing process. It's gathering more data, it's learning more things, it's testing that stuff, and it's adding more puzzle pieces, and sometimes raising more questions, which is the exciting part. I feel like I went off on a tangent, sorry. But I think it's really important to I guess be aware of that stuff, and realize, like, I don't know, I think they saw a headline article or like a clickbait headline that was like, oh, the Big Bang didn't happen. It's like, no. This has nothing to do with that. I think another recent example, oh, maybe I just forgot it. Haha, ADHD. I'm trying to think. What was it? It's probably just,
I've definitely seen my share of people come on your channel and just drop the most absurd nonsense. And I know that's subjective based on whoever's watching or listening to this, but like flat earth stuff I've seen in your people bring up in your channel, and that conspiracy theory about, you know, space and governments, and it's just like, okay, let's just stay on topic.
So yeah, that stuff, depending what it is, I don't even talk with anymore. That stuff I generally just ban the flat earth stuff, because there's no way to have a conversation with them, because I think their basis of reality and understanding, and like it just boils down to like basic scientific concepts of like everything. And I don't want to spend 30 minutes having that conversation on my stream. And I think a lot of the times they're just trolls anyways. But yeah, there's enough information, or there's like enough videos out there talking about why that stuff's not real. So I feel like I don't need to focus on it as much. But yeah, there's definitely some things that are brought up, and sometimes I'll be like, I'll ask people where did they hear that? Like, where did they learn that? Like, where did they find that from? And sometimes they'll engage in a conversation, and sometimes they'll probably know that they were called out for misinformation and just get out of there, or just leave the stream or something. And like, I want everyone to feel welcome and feel accepted in my stream, but I also am very much like not okay with spreading misinformation or having someone think that they're spreading something, you know, being like, oh, I learned this really cool thing, like, or like, what is it? Like, yeah, like the Large Hadron Collider. No, maybe, wait, I think it was those people. No, maybe it was some scientist somewhere, like making a black hole or something. It was like a big thing and everyone was all scared about it. Like I wouldn't want someone to like say that and like spread misinformation in the stream, but like that's what every article headline was. So I guess I try to take a moment and ask where they got that from and kind of look into it. And even if I don't do it on stream, like I've done it in my Discord server before. Well, like off stream, I'll check into something and I'll be like, okay, this is like my interpretation, or this is what, you know, that's a clickbait article. Let me explain it to you a bit better. And I think it's really important to do.
You mentioned a couple times the JWST, James Webb Space Telescope, I believe. So if you could explain what it is and its importance to someone who has no knowledge or expertise whatsoever, what would you say?
Oh, so it's a new space telescope. It's kind of like the successor to the Hubble Space Telescope, which I hope you've heard about also. But James Webb Space Telescope is looking more so into infrared light. So it's looking further back in time. So it's seeing some of the first galaxies that have ever formed after the Big Bang. And I mean, it's just spectacular. Also, it just is giving us a lot of really beautiful photos, and it's doing a lot of really cool stuff. But the purpose of it more so is to look at specific areas in time, like a bit closer to after the Big Bang. It's the furthest like back in time that we've ever seen. Because like when you look out into space, you are like essentially time traveling. You're seeing a, you know, however many light years away it is, like you're seeing it at that time. So yeah, we're able to see some old galaxies. It's really cool. I feel like I didn't explain that great, but
so it's like if it's 1 light year away, then that means it took light 1 year to get here, which means we're seeing what it looked like a year ago, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So with this JWST, it's seeing things like what, millions, billions of years ago?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I was trying to math that out. I'm like, what if I'm like misremembering something? Yeah, don't we think the universe is like 13.6 or something like billion years old? So we're seeing galaxies that are really old. Why am I totally spacing the number right now? No pun intended. Yeah, I mean, I know some are like, we think they were like maybe 300 million years after the Big Bang or something.
That soon?
Part of me.
So was that what you were talking about earlier when you said that we've seen galaxies that are much older than we thought?
Yeah, but just by like a few 100 million years or something, from my understanding. Part of me is like, I need to Google this and make sure I'm not accidentally like spouting the wrong thing.
Misinformation.
Yeah. Well, and we'll get into that when we talk about ADHD as well. Like I struggle to trust my memory. But yeah, so we're getting a lot of information about like, you know, the really early in the universe, and we're getting insights into a lot of different things. Like the era of reionization and everything, and like the first light in the universe that we've been able to see. Like I feel like that stuff I can't explain as well because cosmology is definitely like not my strong suit, but it's like yeah, like there wasn't, like after the Big Bang there wasn't light, there wasn't things, you know, there was like hydrogen, helium, whatever, stars formed, and then once galaxies formed, the galaxies started, I feel like, oh gosh, if like a cosmologist or someone watches this, they're going to cringe so hard. But like, I think something along the lines of like, after the galaxies formed, like the, wow, I'm explaining this really bad. Anyways, we were able to like see the light of things for the first time. And that's part of like that whole history.
So photons didn't exist until then? Or our perception of them? Like, because you mentioned first light. Is it first light from our perspective or actual like universe's first instance of photonic energy?
I don't know.
Okay.
This is a moment I would Google.
That's a good answer.
This is a moment I would Google it. Like, I feel like I should know.
Like, I'm the same with you with misinformation. Like, I think it's important for people, especially in STEM, to say, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's like, we're not experts on everything, right?
Yeah.
If I knew nothing about science, space, galaxies, universe, or anything, would you be able to explain to me why JWST is important? Like, that whole Reddit mantra, explain it like I'm 5, right?
Oh.
Is that possible with the JWST?
I mean, yeah. Is it possible for me to do? Perhaps. I think...
Give it a shot if you want.
I feel like it's just allowing us to see, like I said, some of the earliest galaxies, some of the first things that we were able to observe in the universe. Like, it's our origins. Like, it gives us...
So not just the origins of life, but existence itself.
I mean, a little bit. I feel like that would more so maybe be like the cosmic microwave background and stuff, like with the Big Bang. But I mean, being able to see and actually have photos of some of the first galaxies and like see how big they are or what they looked like, or like, I don't know. I think it's really cool. Like, we learn a lot about like galaxy evolution and stuff, but also just like, yeah, like the origins of the universe. Like, it's not just like, it's almost hard to put into words, I guess, because it's not like the origins of life on Earth or like whatever. Mm-hmm. It's like the universe itself, like everything. Like, I struggle to talk about it because it's just so like mind-bogglingly large and old and like incomprehensible. And so we're seeing some of the first stuff that we're able to see there. Like, that's such an amazing scientific feat. And I hope it is like, I do think it is in a way uniting humanity over the world, but I think being able to look at this stuff is really cool. I don't know if it has as many like implications. I guess something that gets brought up on my stream every now and again is people like being annoyed that space science is a thing because people on Earth are, you know, like, why aren't we spending money on people on Earth? Like, why are people starving? And, you know, why are you doing this space stuff when people are starving? And like, maybe James Webb Space Telescope isn't contributing to that, but there are other things like research on the International Space Station and other research that NASA does, which does directly impact humans, like for medical things, medicine, like farming and better crop growing, so people can have more food. And so I think those things are important to touch on. But if someone asked me about that with JWST, I feel like it's more just like purely scientific awesomeness. Like, does it need to have...
So it's more specialized.
Yeah, like it doesn't need to have a direct benefit to humans. Do we have to gain something from it? Do we need to get profit from this for it to matter? No. I think, you know, just having the science and having the knowledge in and of itself is awesome. And you know, we might learn some cool things along the way too, that could benefit us. But yeah.
So you're speaking more to just like the purity of the scientific method and just getting answers to questions more than anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
That does drive a lot of people. It's a different kind of, to me, it's a different kind of exploration.
It is.
Right.
We just want to know all the things, and like we're sending spacecraft out there so we can get a better like picture. Like I always use the word like puzzle, like another piece of the puzzle. Like, just think of the whole universe as this like huge unknown puzzle, and every now and again, like that takes up your entire kitchen table or something, and every now and again we'll get like this tiny little piece that goes somewhere, but then we realize that we're missing 5 more pieces. But sometimes we get a piece and we put it in there and we're like, wow, that's cool. And we're like putting together this huge picture of like the existence of everything. Like, that is invaluable. That is just the coolest. And I mean, yeah, I guess that is science in and of itself, like just for the sake of learning and the sake of knowing. I don't think, yeah, I love it. I think it's the coolest.
So the JWST is letting us see further and back in time than we ever have. And it kind of brought up a question to me, and this is basically just me asking what you think about this or not. Does the universe itself have an event horizon or a border?
Immediately, I think my brain kind of goes like event horizon, no.
Okay.
That's more like a black hole type thing, I feel like. But
okay.
A border?
Well, it could be, I thought event horizon could be used to explain the edge of some event that's happening, right?
Maybe. I mean, I guess
I could be wrong. I'm not the expert. I know your cosmology you said isn't your strong
I'm not
suit,
an expert
but I'm
on
like,
this either.
we could just use the word border because I think that's easier to understand for people. Like, is there a boundary or an edge of the universe? What do you think?
So from what I know, the universe is continuously expanding. I think what gets me is like, what is it expanding into? What is it doing? And you just have to think of like being on the surface of a balloon as someone's blowing up a balloon, essentially. And we're just like a little speck on the surface of a balloon. I don't know. That always confuses me. And I've had conversations about it and like with people I know. I think there is like a quote unquote like edge of the universe, even if it is expanding. We do not know what shape it is, though. We don't know like what shape the universe is. And I think that's pretty cool. And I hope one day we do get to learn more about it. I guess in my brain, it's like I don't want to say it's a shape that doesn't have a shape because that sounds weird. It's more like some blob. It's not like a square
amorphous
or a sphere. Yeah. It would be cool if it was a torus, though, which is like a donut shape.
That's the yeah. Okay. Wow. How would it be okay, because it's a ring continuously expanding then, right? Is that what you're saying?
I guess,
like that? Like a three-dimensional donut continuously expanding. What could it possibly be? A shape that's something that's not in third-dimensional space, so like fourth-dimensional space or something like that? Like something that we can't comprehend, which would be like, I think the most common shape of that is called a tesseract, right?
Yeah, I feel like it wouldn't be a tesseract necessarily, but yeah, it could be like some fourth dimension extrapolation of some amorphous blob or whatever kind of thing, I suppose. And maybe that it explains where it's going into, but I mean, once again, I don't know enough about it to like comment on it, but I do think that stuff is really fascinating. And it's weird because it's like, that's one of those big unknowns where it's like, are we ever going to have an answer to this? Or like, are we ever going to understand the stuff a bit more? And maybe part of it too is just like a mathematical constraint or variable that we put on some of these things to help us better interpret it or understand it, like as humans, or like as like third dimensional, like we experience the world in three dimensions. So maybe like we project that viewpoint onto the universe or something. I feel like that sounds really weird. Like I don't think there's like some fourth dimension out there or something, something weird, but yeah.
It makes sense because humanity used to think that the Earth was the center of the universe because that was just their perspective, right? Mm-hmm. We only have our own perspective to go by. And right now you're trying to explain what perspective we have right now, and it's not easy to do because we don't know the answers.
Yeah. Well, and I also think like, how humans used to like think we were the center of the universe on Earth, I think is a very similar viewpoint to people who maybe don't believe or don't think that other life could be out there. Like, to me, that's just incomprehensible. And that would be actually terrifying. Like, if we learned, there's definitely no life anywhere else out there, like, I don't think I could handle that.
Do you think it's a mathematical impossibility that life does not exist outside of Earth?
I mean, yeah. Like, I know they try to model it with like the Drake equation and other things, but those also have a lot of unknown variables that we just literally don't have answers to. Like, isn't one of the variables in that like how many civilizations does one galaxy have? Like, we don't have answers to that. We just know we're one, but our galaxy could have many. Who knows? But also,
we also know that.
Oh, sorry. What?
The equation also says that they all eventually get to a point where they are wiped out or die out or whatever, and we don't know those either.
I mean, yeah, it's there's definitely a lot of unknowns in it, and there's been like some cool updates and stuff too. But I feel like just looking at, and this almost gets to like, is the universe finite or infinite? Which we also don't know.
Yeah.
But if the universe is finite, well, okay, so more so if the universe is infinite, then like everything could exist. Everything exists mathematically. Every single thing you can think of exists. Like, we're having this conversation somewhere else, except I'm interviewing you, for example. And that's like that's weird, but that's really cool.
So is that a different concept from like multiverse theory? Where if this universe is infinite, then literally everything that could be exists within this universe, versus the multiverse where it's like this is a different universe where there are different possibilities. Are those different concepts?
I mean, maybe like a theoretical physicist would have like a better answer to that, but
fair.
And I don't go too much into like the theoretical things. Like, it's fun to have the conversations, but in my mind, I guess like an infinite universe is a bit different, because that would just be like one universe that just kind of is infinite. But I guess multiverse is more like there's, like, well, one of them was like 32 or something, like different universes that exist, or, there's a whole bunch of different theories on that. And those are hard to prove or disprove, really, because how do you test that? How do we check that out?
Right. You don't.
Yeah.
So, okay, you say you don't like to theorize. So do you not like to like wonder about these possibilities then? Or are you more strictly focused on empiricism when it comes to this kind of thing?
I guess so, in a way. I feel like sometimes, like on my stream, having some of these conversations can kind of go off the deep end, or kind of go into more, it's not always pseudoscience either. It's more just kind of like misinformation kind of things. So I try to, especially when it's stuff I don't know much about, because if they're bringing up something weird that is kind of misinformation, I might not be able to like catch it as much. And I've learned that there's a lot of kind of weird things like that exist. I think it is kind of cool to have the conversations, or just be like, yeah, like we don't know this stuff, and it's really cool. But I guess
those are questions I am interested in asking you, because I like your viewpoint. That's why you're here. I want to know what you think.
Well, thank you. I guess with like kind of theorizing or whatever, I stick more towards like aliens, but not like the alien guy from that History Channel.
The dude with the hair. The dude with the hair.
Not that stuff. And I still try to like base that more so in science and whatnot. Like, it's not like aliens visiting Earth. Like, I have things to say on that. But I try to generally avoid those conversations on my stream, because I know that can overlap with things that aren't necessarily as evidence-based. So, yeah. But I do think, kind of going back to what you said before about like the mathematical kind of do you say probability, or kind of mathematical equation of like, there's just a bajillion like galaxies out there. And there's, a lot of planets in those galaxies, and there's even a lot of planets in our own galaxy. Yeah. Like, there's got to be something else out there, even if it's microbial life, but I'm sure there's other intelligent life out there. It's just too far from us here on Earth to like communicate with us. So we'll probably never know them or know anything about them, which is heartbreaking, because I wish we were like in Star Trek, where we could just boldly go in our warp drive ships and go somewhere and check it out. But yeah.
Use loopholes to bypass the speed of light to travel to other systems.
Like wormholes.
Yeah.
Wormholes are cool. Like, wormholes are theoretical, but like they could happen. I think it would be so cool. Just bending
wormholes,
space-time.
And then Alcubierre Drive, I think is the one.
Alcubierre Drive, yeah.
Alcubierre, thank you.
However you say it. I feel like I mispronounce things.
I think it was
all the
a
time.
Mexican scientist. So it was a Mexican scientist. So I don't remember how it's pronounced. But yeah, was it the idea was like compressing space in front of the vessel and expanding it behind so that it alters gravity or something? Something. I don't know. It gets pretty, again, theoretical.
From what I remember, and like actually, I will have you know, well, at least along, like, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, I know NASA scientists were working on seeing if they could make something like that. Like, people are doing actual science, looking into warp drives and so many other things.
That's
and like
cool.
all of the cool sci-fi things in Star Trek. It's amazing. Obviously we haven't found anything yet, but we're trying. There's even stuff right now with like Breakthrough Starshot is trying to do like laser propelled light sail ships to go like 20% the speed of light. So you could go to like Proxima Centauri, which is 4.2 light years from Earth. It's our closest star and also the closest exoplanet to us. Like, that's not the sun, obviously. And it's trying to get there in like 20 years or something, which would just be crazy for like a little toaster sized CubeSat satellite, not like taking humans, but that's really fast. And that's
was I taught
so cool.
I'm sorry, was I taught wrong as a kid? Because I thought it was Alpha Centauri was the closest.
Yeah,
maybe I was taught wrong.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like what is it, a binary or a triple star system? Why am I forgetting? Yeah, Alpha Centauri, Proxima Centauri. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I'm trying. Sorry, I'm ADHD brain all over the place. I'm trying to remember the other thing that you mentioned that you wanted me to answer, because I know I kind of went off on a different tangent there.
It's all right. We both have it, so we're just going with the flow here.
I mean, that's fine. Oh, I had like another answer.
Let me break in then. And if you think of it, we'll go back. Okay. Because I do want to ask these two questions. You got it?
Oh, it was just about the warp drive thing. I thought the Alcubierre drive like kind of was like a bubble isn't a great word, but I thought it kind of essentially did something around your ship, like warped space-time around your ship and just put it like into like a continuous free fall. Put it in like a continuous free fall, which is super cool. Yeah. I feel like I was just
compress space in front to create a gravity well and expand it behind to, it's a really cool concept. Okay, let me ask you these two questions, because I know these are theoretical, but again, these are questions that I'm interested in your viewpoint on, and I know others are too. What do you think is quote unquote outside the universe?
I mean, I kind of brought that up before of like, if we were at the edge of the expanding universe, what is out there? No one knows. I don't know. I remember thinking about that as a kid when I learned about that. I was like, what is it expanding into? What's happening? I think people probably have different answers to it, especially I think people who are religious might have some answers or something into that. But from a like I guess just scientific and data driven viewpoint, like I just think there's no way to know. I think it could just be nothing. Like literally nothing, you know? Like what were you before you were born, you know? Like what is that? Like nothing is. What was there before the Big Bang? Like nothing, you know? I'm kind of assuming which is hard to fully comprehend.
You said you liked the philosophy of it, so that's why I wanted to break into it. Because it's also like, isn't nothing technically like a concept of something?
I guess you could define it as the lack of something. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then I'm like, it also goes to the point that I'm thinking, like, if there is something outside the universe, is that part of the universe, or is that something else? It's just like, oh God, where do we go?
I mean, I know some of like the theoretical things are like, you know, there's multiple universes kind of expanding, and sometimes they kind of like bump into each other or something like that.
Almost like galaxies.
I mean, kind of, I guess. Like, I know that's one of like the I thought it might be like that M32 theory or something else. I can't fully remember.
I don't know what that is.
I think that's the one with like, you know, like 32 different universes, and sometimes they bump into each other and whatever. But
that seems like an arbitrary number.
I don't know how they come up with the thing. I don't know. I'm not as big into like the theoretical things.
Right. I understand there's like a reason they would come up with this, but from my perspective, it's just like, why is that number?
I don't, and that like might not even be a thing anymore. I feel like I remember reading about it like years and years and years ago. But yeah, I mean, I guess in a way it could be that. It could be something like that. Yeah. I mean, I guess, yeah, for theoretical physics, I feel like you could be like, it could be literally anything, right? Like, oh, we could be in a, I don't know, in an actual donut, in a donut shaped universe, or you know what I mean? Like, you can kind of say anything and you can't really prove or disprove it as much. I don't know. But I'm sure there is some like actual science stuff that goes into their theories. I don't mean to like fully discredit them or something, but it's more so to the point where like it's incredibly difficult to prove or get any evidence or data or anything for. Yeah.
Do you think JWST is like something that helps us get closer to that understanding?
What understanding exactly? Like what's outside
of? Yeah, the edge of the universe, the beginning of the universe, the unknown beyond it.
Like edge of the universe, not necessarily, because I don't know if there like is an edge, right? Like I feel like it would be more so like a curve, like, you know. But I get what you mean there. I don't think it's really giving us insights into that. I feel like it's giving us more so insights into like the early universe, like some of the first galaxies and everything like that, and kind of helping us refine our cosmological models and stuff too.
All right, let's switch gears here.
Hold on. You didn't bring up the most important or my favorite JWST thing.
Okay.
Which is looking at the atmospheres of exoplanets.
Can it do that?
Yeah. That's like the coolest thing that it does.
All right, you go. Like I didn't know that.
Okay, Finn.
I'm usually pretty good with this research, but yeah.
You come into my streams, buddy. Come on. No, I'm just kidding.
Damn.
So,
okay.
So during like the very first like data release from JWST, one of them was for an exoplanet, and like checking out the atmosphere of it. And like we could do it a little bit before. But I think for me, just being like a huge astrobiology nerd that also really loves exoplanets and especially potentially habitable ones, I've been really excited for JWST just so we can get some insights into potentially habitable exoplanets and like what their atmospheres are. So we're looking for, I mean, gosh, I could really go off on it, like kind of how it does it, like what it's doing. I guess I could do that since we're not on a time limit really. So when a planet passes in front of a star, it dims the light a bit. One of the ways that we actually detect one of the ways that we detect exoplanets is from the transit method, which is that we can also use like radial velocity method, which is noticing a star wobbling a little bit because of the gravitational pull of it. But for the transit method, that's how like the transiting exoplanet survey satellite, which is like kind of the successor to Kepler space telescope is doing to find exoplanets. So I like don't want to do like a huge like info dump where like I just lose people, but so I feel like I'm doing that because I'm really excited. So
then do it.
When the planet goes in front of the star, right? It'll dip the light, but more so when it's kind of like going in front at like a specific angle, like right in front of the star and right behind. And I have things I use on my stream. I won't do it on this. But the starlight will actually pass through the atmosphere of an exoplanet if it does have an atmosphere. And so that light goes through the atmosphere, travels all the way to JWST, and JWST takes in the light and checks it out. So the important part of this is that, you know, obviously light is a spectrum. We know that different elements like correspond to different parts of the spectrum. So if there's like a dip in something,
the visual spectrum, right?
I mean, like the whole
not visual, but yeah,
it's easier to explain if I have like a graph, because like if there's oxygen, for example, this like area of light will be missing on this graph. Like it'll be gone because oxygen is present. So JWST,
like it absorbs the photons
absorbing,
or whatever.
That's the word. Yeah, it absorbs it.
Okay.
So yeah, JWST will take in this light and it'll see like where the absorption lines are. And so we're able to say, like after analyzing it, obviously, and scientists are checking it out, but they're able to say like, oh yeah, there's like some water vapor and there's oxygen, or there's methane or this or that. So we're able to kind of get a decent look at what these atmospheres of exoplanets are made out of. And we can also find some really exciting things, which, gosh, I could go into because that almost kind of goes hand in hand with like some of like the misinformation or kind of like bad reporting stuff. But yeah, we can find some cool stuff and looks for biosignatures as well, which are like good signs of life in like atmospheres. Like, you know, if an atmosphere.
How does it do that? Is it the same method?
I mean, yeah. It's
like, do the biosignatures create this specific distortion in the waveform? The light waveform?
A biosignature essentially would just be something that life could have made. So like on Earth, like carbon dioxide and methane could be a biosignature. Like literally cows are farting, creating methane in our atmosphere. But it's more so the disequilibrium in the quantities of it. Like from my understanding, things kind of naturally exist together. Like if you have methane and oxygen or something in an atmosphere, it would naturally like equalize at a certain level. So if you have more of one of those or less of one of those, it's showing like, something's going up, like something's creating more of this. And so I think that would be a good biosignature. Also, just something that looks like our own atmosphere, obviously would be huge looking out there at random things.
Right.
Something like CFCs, like chlorofluorocarbon. Why am I messing up the word? Like what was in like,
I think you said it right.
Aerosols, like hairspray and stuff back in the day, which are now banned because they were depleting our ozone, which is good. We banned them. But finding something like that would be huge because that's not naturally made. Most of these things can be made from either like life forms or just from, you know, like a volcano or something else, like a natural process that isn't life in and of itself. So it's hard to find like exact biosignatures, but I think it's more so like the disequilibrium or something that would kind of give us a hint. And I guess when we are trying to look for life out there in the universe, we kind of not all astrobiologists, but a lot of them are looking for something that's similar to Earth or similar to the only place we know of that life exists. But it's not to say that there couldn't be life in other areas. I mean, like I said earlier, Saturn's moon Enceladus is one of the best places to look for life, and that's like not in the habitable zone. It's way out there. It's like, you know, an ocean. It's a moon, and it is covered in ice, and it has an ocean underneath the surface. So, you know, I think there's a lot of areas that we could look for life. But I think JWST looking at atmospheres of exoplanets is something that scientists and astrobiologists have been really excited for a long time. And it also helps us understand like planetary formation and more so, I guess, like planetary evolution and just kind of getting a better understanding of what else is out there. But I hope we get some cool like atmosphere readings. That's the stuff that gets me really, really excited.
So they're able to see like these entropic imbalances basically with the JWST. So
if there was
like
one.
you said, like you said, like if there's going to be gases in an atmosphere, it should be at some kind of equilibrium, some kind of normalized quantity with respect to each other. And we're able to see that with the light spectrum itself, right?
From my understanding, yes.
Because like the way I've understood it is, and this is like a centuries old discovery, it's like if you take light through a prism, it splits the visible spectrum, right? The whole Roy G. Biv and whatnot.
Floyd.
And then there's also the infrared that you were talking about. Pink Floyd, yeah. But the key there that I understood was the distribution of those specific like quantities of light determine what element on the periodic chart it was. So if like you were shining light through like methane, it would have a specific like Roy G. Biv configuration or infrared or whatever. So is that how like JWST is like able to determine like what's in these stars, what's on these exoplanets, as far as those basic elements go?
Yes. Unless I'm misunderstanding what you're saying. Yeah, it's essentially like those absorption lines and stuff. I should do a deep dive stream on this because it is really fascinating.
You should. Yeah, that would be cool. I'd like that.
But yeah, and I can show you some graphs and stuff like afterwards to kind of like explain it a bit better. But yeah, like if you know if there is methane or something, it'll be absorbing that part of the visible spectrum. And maybe methane is like, I don't know, like 160 microns or whatever of light. And that's not that I'm pulling that number out of nowhere. It's not like, I don't know. But yeah, then it would show it as like present. And there's people who are, you know, like it's their job as a scientist to look at like these atmospheres with JWST. And I just think that's so cool. I just think that's so cool.
I'm surprised you didn't bring it up before.
Well, I feel like it didn't fully fit in with the questions.
Doesn't matter.
I mean, I feel like there are like some areas of like, oh, well, like I've learned this thing. So maybe it's like, it's not always as easy as that, I guess is what I'll say. I actually had one of those scientists come into my stream and talk about stuff a little bit, which was so cool. Like come awesome. Into my Twitch chat. Yeah, it was awesome. I would love to have them on and talk to them sometime, but they're actually looking,
email them.
Yeah. They're looking at the, they're analyzing the atmospheres of the TRAPPIST-1 exoplanets, which you've maybe heard about.
I have, but remind us all what the significance is.
So TRAPPIST-1 is like, I think 42 light years away or something. It's a red dwarf star, and it has 7 exoplanets around it. So
exoplanets.
So
those are just planets that aren't in our system, right?
Yeah. So seven planets, but we just say exoplanets if it's not in our solar system. So 7 exoplanets, and like 3, maybe 4 are in the habitable zone. And so the habitable zone is just the area from a star where liquid water could exist on the surface. It does not mean that it's like habitable there. It just means liquid water could exist on the surface. Obviously, you need to have like, you know, an atmosphere and a bunch of other stuff to have life and blah, blah, blah. But that's all it is. And also a lot of astrobiologists are like, they don't like the term habitable zone because it makes it sound like that's the only area in a system that you can find life. But as we know, like Earth is in the habitable zone around the sun. We have liquid water on our surface. But, you know, there's water that exists way out around the outer planets too, like on their moons. Even Neptune's moon, Triton, we think there's a liquid ocean underneath an icy surface all the way out there, which is so cool.
How is it not frozen? That is wild.
So cool. Maybe from part of it could be from like tidal heating from like pulling of so like for Europa, for example, which is Jupiter's moon. Europa is well, I guess more so Io, but you know, one of the biggest moons, the biggest moon in the solar system, Ganymede, is kind of pushing and pulling on Europa, and Jupiter is also kind of like so it like generates heat. But it could also be like the core of the moon as well, I think, kind of helping heating it up. But yeah, so those 3 or 4 exoplanets in the TRAPPIST-1 system are in the habitable zone. So it's a good place to look for life. Like when we're really, truly looking for like a needle in a haystack, for lack of a better comparison. Like we're just looking out there into the vastness of unknown and like nearly infinity, you know. So we're trying to find something maybe similar to us. Not that we're only looking in those places, but we're checking out the atmospheres of the planets, because back when the system was discovered, or when it gained more media attention, I guess in like 2017, people got really excited about it. And we're like, whoa, that's like a lot of exoplanets in this area, like in this distance from their star, that could actually have liquid water on the surface. But one thing that I learned about this, which is why I brought it up and said that it's not as easy to, you know, just get the light and check it out, is because the scientist mentioned that there's actually like, so red dwarf stars are really volatile. So all the atmospheres of these exoplanets could just be swept away from like solar flares and stuff. But since it's so volatile, it's also, there's a lot of, I guess, a lot of different things going on with the star. There's like hot spots and cold spots, which, you know, we have some on our own sun, but I think there's a bit more on TRAPPIST-1, the star. And so when an exoplanet is passing in front of one of these spots, it actually changes like the wavelength of light. Like it pushes it a little more this way or pushes it a little more that way because it's like a colder spot. So it is like different light that we're receiving and different light that's going through the atmosphere. So they got these really weird readings, from my understanding. And they were kind of struggling to realize what was going on until they learned that it was from those like spots on a star. So for me, that raised a very big red flag of like, oh, it's not as easy as just capturing a planet transiting in front of a star. It's capturing it. I mean, obviously they capture it multiple times to make sure they have the right readings and get everything. But it's like, I feel like this kind of raises a red flag and a bigger caveat of like, they're going to have to do that a lot, or they're going to have to, I guess, take that into account when they're trying to learn more about exoplanet atmospheres and stuff too. And that's just part of the ongoing scientific process. But I think it's really interesting though. But yeah, I know a lot more goes into it than the simple like, oh, we got the light. Okay, hey, this thing is missing. Like it's a lot.
So there's a lot more variables to be accounted for. Yeah. So has that been one of the biggest utilizations then of JWST? Is this like search for exoplanets?
I mean, it's not necessarily searching for exoplanets. It's more so sometimes I think it could confirm them, but and by that I mean when we find an exoplanet, we always check with another method as a science to make sure that it's actually an exoplanet and wasn't just like a faulty reading or something. So we like find it and we go, oh, that could be an exoplanet. Here's an exoplanet candidate, which by the way, we have over 10,000 exoplanet candidates right now. And over like 5,500 confirmed exoplanets. So the confirmed ones...
That answers my next question.
So the confirmed ones are oftentimes, like for example, Kepler or TESS, the Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite I was talking about before, will find a candidate and then like a ground-based telescope or maybe even some other space-based one might like check it out for like the next transit and see if they get the same reading. And yeah. I forgot what else you asked just before.
Just if that was one of the biggest, implementations of JWST.
Sorry. Oh my gosh. For me, I think, and people who are into that, yes. Like JWST was definitely, that is a really big part of it though. And JWST was definitely made to do that. But I think the big part of it is like, looking way back into the history of the universe, essentially, like looking way into the infrared, since it's a lot, like it goes way further into the infrared spectrum than like Hubble Space Telescope did. So more of the images we see from Hubble are like invisible light, whereas a lot of the JWST ones we see are from like more so like infrared, depending exactly.
Does that give us does that give us a better understanding of what we're looking at because it's able to see more of that infrared?
Yeah, I mean, seeing things in every wavelength of light, from like X-ray with Chandra Space Telescope to infrared with James Webb Space Telescope and mid-infrared to like visible light, we all get to see different things with that. And it helps scientists build a more full and better understanding of something specifically. One cool thing that the infrared light, or one cool thing that JWST can do with looking at stuff in infrared is that it can like see through and see past like dust and stuff for the most part. Like if dust is in the way of something, like I really like looking at like the sliding photos between like JWST and Hubble, like looking at it like infrared versus visible light, because a lot of like this dust and other stuff that's in the way, JWST can see through in infrared and can get like whatever is behind it or whatever like overarching like structure or something is there, which is pretty cool.
Interesting. So, okay, like my understanding of dust is a very human egocentric, because it's like, oh, dust, it's like shedded skin or whatever. But like you're speaking specifically of like detritus or whatever in space, like anything that would be blocking the visible spectrum. And it's able with the infrared to actually see beyond that then.
Yeah, like looking at a galaxy or something. Like there's a lot of like dust and kind of things that make it look so beautiful, as you can see in Hubble images. But when you look at the JWST images, you see like this really like cool structure that's like I don't know how to explain it better. It's almost like,
it's okay.
It just looks really cool. Like you'll know when you see like one of the cool slidey pictures. But yeah, I can see that it can see through that and see
You can give us links to put in the description for the video if you want.
I do that.
So you mentioned this one a few times, Enceladus, and that was one of the topics I wanted to touch on tonight. I know, at least from was explained to me by you and from what I've seen in social media and just news, that Saturn, it's a moon of Saturn, right? Mm-hmm. And it is a likely candidate to have conditions ripe to harbor life, whether microbial or other. What would it mean to you personally and humanity if that was discovered to be true?
Oh my, it would just be like answering one of humanity's biggest questions, I feel like, which is, are we alone in the universe? If there's life on Enceladus, that answer is easily no, we're not alone, because we found life somewhere else. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of places in the solar system to look for life, as I said before. But with all of the data that we have, it, in my opinion, seems like Enceladus is one of the best bets for it. I feel like that would have so many consequences of finding life. It would be, I mean, maybe some people wouldn't care as much. Like maybe some people would be like, oh, whatever. Maybe some people would rewrite some books about things or something, or you know, add it into their viewpoint of the world. But I do feel like that's one of humanity's biggest questions is, are we alone in the universe? And that would be an answer for sure. And it's a lot easier to prove something than it is to disprove something as well. Right? That's a whole mathematical thing. Like mathematically, it's easier to prove than disprove. Because disproving something, you have to go through every single case and every single basis, every single thing. But proving something, you just have to find one correct proof, one correct example, one thing. And so if we, I mean, gosh, I think it's hard to know how humanity as a whole would embrace that. I think a lot of people, this might sound negative, I think a lot of people would be like irritated that it's not like, assuming that it's not like, you know, intelligent life or something. Like it's probably microbial, it's probably, you know, single-celled, maybe multi-cell organisms would be cool. I would be thrilled if there was like fish or something like the weird deep ocean creatures we have. Like I think it's like a comb jellyfish or something with like the cool like bioluminescence like rainbow that's like bloop bloop. Like that would be awesome.
It makes that exact noise too.
That is the sound of Enceladus right there. But I think having something like finding any of that, I think would be really cool. I think people would just act in a whole variety of ways. But I mean, it would be huge. It would be profound. There would probably be, yeah. I don't even know.
What would it mean to you personally? How would it make you feel?
I would cry. I would just bawl my eyes out. I feel like I'm tearing up thinking about it right now. I don't know why it's such a big question for me. Like, are we alone out there? Like, I don't know. Maybe that's like my little existential middle schooler looking at Hubble Space Telescope, Hubble Deep Field Images. Like, it's something I like need to know. Like, there's no way we can be alone, but like, I need to know for sure, you know? And it would be validating in a weird way too, especially if we found it on Enceladus. That would be very validating for me. But just finding life anywhere in the solar system or beyond would be validating, I think, to a lot of scientists who have spent their life's work looking for this stuff. And, you know, that's a big part of what Carl Sagan and other people who have now passed have spent their life's work on too. And I just think it would be, like, I feel like I have no words. It would, like, what would I do after that? Like, I mean, there's a lot of stuff to do after that, but like, oh man, I remember a few years ago, I think it was in 2020, they mentioned, or there was like that study that came out saying that there was maybe phosphine in Venus's atmosphere, which is a really big biosignature. Someone actually messaged me before that news came public with like a spoiler alert. And I remember reading it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I remember reading it and I literally cried because I was like, if this is real, like once peer review happens and people check this out, if this is real, like this is, yeah. I mean, I cried for, I feel like I like several minutes straight. I was just like, this would be huge. Like, it's just that one of the biggest questions in my life. And I think a lot of other, well, maybe not a lot of others, maybe people don't think about this as much, but like for me, it's just such this like overarching question that I've just been so obsessed with. So I think it'd be really cool to have answers, which by the way, I don't think that phosphine thing checked out, just to be clear and put that out there.
I was going to say, is that still ongoing?
It's been, I think there's been several studies that's kind of like, it seems like there is, oh, it seems like there's not. I'm personally kind of leaning towards no if we're like a bit undecided, but Venus is still a really good place to look for life for what it's worth. So
why is this such a drive for you to know the answer to that question?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it almost does go back to like some of that older, like, you know, oh, humanity is clearly like Earth is clearly the center of the universe and all of this stuff. Like, it's just piecing together this larger picture and like, maybe more of it kind of cuts more deep. Like, I want to know, how do I word this without sounding really weird? Like, I just hope that there's another intelligent species out there. And I hope that they're smarter than us and that they actually are taking care of their planet and that they respect each other and like aren't going to wars over whatever. And like I hope that there's a species that's just like peaceful or more scientifically driven or like, you know, like I don't want this to be the only thing that's in the entire universe, like for life, you know, like it just, I don't feel okay about that. Like there's a lot of issues with the world and, you know, there's a lot of like, as we were talking about before, like not great stuff that humanity has done and especially has done to our planet, let alone other people of our own species, you know, like, I guess part of me just wants to know that there's like something else out there and that it like it could be better. Like not to be like, oh, the grass is greener on the other side or something. But I just, yeah, maybe part of it is that. And maybe part of it is just like looking at the vastness of space and knowing that we just, well, believing, I guess, because obviously I don't know, don't have the evidence, but, you know, just strongly believing that we just can't be alone, whether that's microbial life or intelligent life or whatever. Like, yeah, I don't know exactly why it's such a drive for me. I think it's just that question that it almost felt like we would never have an answer to. And then when I learned more about it, I learned that we could actually get answers to it. Like I did not learn in school about Enceladus or Europa. I did not learn that there's a layer of Venus's atmosphere that might actually be good for life. And that we have some interesting readings from like the missions to Venus in the 90s or whatever, or previously. I feel like I didn't really learn like in like grade school. I mean, you know, like I feel like I didn't really learn about Mars's past as much and like, you know, how there could have been water and all of this stuff. Like, and maybe I feel like we have learned a lot over time with all of this stuff too. Obviously, this is like ongoing studies. It's like more information that we've gotten, especially within the past decade, about all of this stuff. But you know, it's not like it's widespread taught in school. Maybe that drew me to, I don't know.
It seems like it's important for you to be validated. You mentioned that word here. Do you have an experience throughout your life of knowing what you're talking about and yet still being invalidated?
Yeah. Like from other people? Yeah. I mean, I'm a woman. So yes, like to
Right.
put that lightly. Sorry, I laugh as a coping mechanism. It's not funny, but and I know other people of any gender have experienced it as well, especially marginalized genders. But yeah, I don't know if validation is like as important to me, but I think
Okay.
like I have confidence issues at times, and I think knowing that like, oh, I was right about this is like, it's like, you know what, you do know what you're talking about. Like you do hold your ground and you can do this. And I had a really big moment like that on my stream before too, which was really cool. What
was that moment?
So we were talking about how there's not like a life detection machine or like a lab on a chip to like go on these missions to find life. And so back in 2017, and I have the VOD saved, back in like 2017, I went on a deep dive, and this is like a fully ADHD hyper-focused deep dive, but my chat was involved too. And there's like some smart people in my chat who like work in varying fields. Like I think we had like some biologist in there who like knew stuff about this. So we were nerding out and talking about like, okay, well, there's no like lab on a chip, like there's no life detection machine that we can just send on like the Europa Clipper mission, for example. So I was like, well, what would we need to send? So we looked into it and we found all of this instrumentation and like this lab stuff that like could actually run autonomously where you don't need a human to do stuff. And we got like, I don't know, like 5 different instrumentation, and we were like, this would be really cool to send there. So essentially it did like, I feel like I can't explain it as well, but it like would find like a source of protein and split it apart and do like all of this weird like liquid fluorescence and all this cool science stuff on it, and see if the protein is from like an organic or inorganic source, like if it's actually from life or not, which would be really cool. And it's definitely like a bit over my head. But fast forward like a few years ago, I read an article about the Ocean World's Life Surveyor, and that machine that they're building had like 7 or 8, I think, like little instrumentation stuff on it, and like 5 of which, or 4 of which, are the stuff that I talked about on my stream. And for me, that was like, whoa, like I don't have a degree in this stuff. I don't know this stuff. Like I was just like researching as this huge nerd, like, and we came to a conclusion that like people are actually going to use in this science that's like eventually going to go explore the watery moons in our solar system. Like what? I wish I could be involved with it. Like I you know what is like the regret for me is that I actually drafted up an email to write to NASA to say, hey, I want a life detection machine on the Europa Clipper mission, and I'm really upset that there's not one. Like, I know I'm not an expert in this field, but I feel like you could send these things on there. Like, do you have any reasons why that's maybe not on there? And I never sent it because I was just an undergrad struggling in college and a little Twitch streamer, you know? Like I didn't feel like I was good enough to. And I almost wonder like, oh, what if I sent that? Like, what if they're like, oh, we're working on something, or like, oh, that's a great, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what would have happened. Like maybe that machine would have been on the Europa Clipper or something. Probably not. This stuff takes a long time. And the Ocean World's Life Surveyor is not ready to go on the Europa Clipper either. It's too big, too heavy. I think it's not quite autonomous enough. But that was really validating to know that like things we've talked about, like theoretically on my stream, have checked out. Like, what? It's so cool.
So you do like to theorize.
Every now and then, I like to theorize more about like the life or like the weird things behind it. Cause like like that's what I want to do. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I want to be streaming on Twitch, but like as far as like a field of study or like a field of work, I would love to do that kind of stuff. So like that's almost me acting like I'm a scientist doing this work or something. Like, I mean, not acting like misleading people, but that's almost me being like, if I were to write come up with like a hypothesis and try to test it or something, like this is what I would want to do. And science does take creativity to come up with these things too, but obviously you have to like test it and get evidence. But yeah. Sorry, what did you say?
I said you do like to theorize.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Every now and again, more so on that stuff though. But I feel like I skimmed over your other question before too about the validation stuff.
Seeking validation, yeah, that's the kind of stuff that kind of is part of who you are, and I'm interested in learning more about that. You say that you are often discounted simply due to your gender, which, you know, it doesn't take a scientist to see that in everyday life. What kinds of challenges have you encountered, you know, just being in SciComm with STEM and Twitch itself with that kind of invalidation, and how do you continue to fight against it?
Ooh. I literally felt that question like in my stomach. It was like, oh. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, we got gut bunches here sometimes.
No, you're all good. Like, I think one thing I do to fight it is just keep streaming and keep doing what I'm doing, because I'm really passionate about this stuff and I love it, and I do make a difference from streaming and sharing my passion. It took me, I think, a while to realize that and accept that and like feel okay with that. Which I think sounds kind of weird. But like I've been ostracized before. Even when I was going to school for a degree in astrophysics, I was still ostracized and was told like I wasn't good enough to be like talking about this stuff essentially. And I think even like, I mean, yeah, obviously my degree now is in computer science. Like we can get into that later when we talk about ADHD, but it makes me feel like, you know, maybe I'm not qualified or not good enough to be talking about this. And I have been keeping up with this stuff for over a decade, and it's a big passion of mine. And I don't try to come off as like an expert or that I know everything. Like I really love this, and I've always shared this, even in 2014 on Twitch, you know, like, and it's something I'm just never gonna stop doing. Like, I'm not spreading misinformation. In fact, I'm doing the opposite. I'm helping people learn, and I'm getting people excited about space, and I'm making people feel like seen and welcome in a community. Whereas, you know, they might come from areas of the world where like enjoying space or having more of a scientific viewpoint is actually looked down on, and they can come to my stream and like feel okay and feel like they belong. And I feel like that's huge. I think I don't know, dealing with that stuff is just really hard. Like, sometimes people will just second guess you in chat or try to argue with everything you say. And that can definitely affect your self-esteem, especially when you're trying to talk about something that, you know, like this stuff. Like, I've had people.
Yeah, that's.
And it's not like you shouldn't.
I get that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get that a lot too.
It's
so
annoying.
Yeah.
And it's not like people shouldn't second guess what I'm saying, especially as like a source of science stuff, right? Like, check your sources, see who it is. I tell people to not trust random people on the internet telling you something about space or whatever, you know, like, check your sources. But also, you know, like, I link my sources and I say, well, this is where I got this information from. But sometimes having someone like in your chat where they're like, oh no, you're wrong about this, you know, it makes me be like, oh my gosh, am I? Or like, you know, then I'll like Google something and then I'll be like, no, I'm not. Like, I think it kind of took me a while to talk more confidently about things, depending. And I feel like that's something I still struggle with at times. Yeah, I think also, like, and don't get me wrong, Twitch is a great place. Like, I love it a lot, and I've been good at holding my boundaries, especially recently, and like making sure my chat is like well moderated and stuff. But you can still get misogynistic people coming in, and I don't know if it's because they truly believe it. I think if they didn't, they probably wouldn't type it or whatever. But, you know, there's a lot of trolls that we have to deal with as content creators, no matter who you are. if you're on the internet, you're going to deal with some trolls and you're going to deal with people being negative and not being nice. And I usually tell those people to have a better day, because I feel like they're just kind of coming from like a place of darkness and like misunderstanding. And I don't think they're okay. Like, I feel like I kind of used to be a little more of a troll, not like an awful one, but I used to be more like that when I was younger. And so like I see it. I'm like, I wasn't happy. I wasn't okay. I was not okay back then. Like, you know, I needed a friend. I needed some, you know, like, and so I try to show them some kindness and be like, I hope things get better for you. But yeah. I don't know if I fully answered your question. Okay. I think it's just kind of hard to, I guess I don't know exactly how to answer it. Maybe I rambled on a lot of different things.
I think you answered it more clearly than a lot of other stuff.
Okay.
It was pretty good.
Oh, well, thank you.
You touched on kind of being representation there, like being a woman in STEM, right? Visible on the internet for anyone to see, facing these challenges, and you said you don't quit, you just keep doing it. How important do you think it is to be, you know, that kind of representation?
I feel like you're making me tear up a little. Oh God, I don't even know where to start here. I've had people in my stream tell me that I have like inspired them to do things, or that like I've inspired them to go on that career, or like they see me being a woman doing this stuff and they feel like they can do it too. And that's huge to me. I have no words. Like, that's literally the highest compliment anyone could ever get about anything. And I think that's really, really cool. I remember when I was younger, in like high school, I think, someone came in and talked to us, and they said that if you aren't good at math, you shouldn't get a degree in STEM. And I'm not good at math. And so I was like, I'll do photography and philosophy and whatever else. And don't get me wrong, I'm better at math now, okay? But
that was like a lecture, like a motivational, like what was that?
Like, I don't even remember. It was some random person came in to like talk to us about this, and I was so mad afterwards. I remember I went and talked to my philosophy teacher, because we were like, I don't want to say we were friends, but like he was kind of like a mentor to me. And I'm really grateful for that. But I remember talking to him, and I was like, I'm so mad they said this. Like, how dare anyone tell me what I can and can't do?
I've seen this before.
Yeah. And anyways, here I am with, a degree in STEM and doing science communication on Twitch and whatever. But yeah, I hated that. And I don't want anyone to ever be talked to that way. Like, ever. You can do whatever you want to do. Just know, like, yeah, if you're not good at math, a STEM degree is going to be harder. It took me forever in college. I failed so many math classes. Like, it was a struggle. But I got a tutor. I worked really hard. I really tried, and it's something I wanted. But like, I think just being this representation and sharing stories like that with my community and letting people know, like, you can, if you're not good at math, like, get a tutor, like, you can overcome it. You can do this thing. This was not encouragement that I had. And so I try to make sure that I give it to other people. And so, like, I don't know, maybe I never set out to like be some beacon of representation or anything like that. Like, I feel like it kind of like happened. I don't know. Like, I just kind of did the stuff that I enjoyed, and it had a positive effect on people, which is really awesome. But I'm really grateful to be in the position where I can maybe inspire and uplift people, like, no matter who they are, if they want to do this stuff, or they just want to learn more about space or whatever. Like, I think it's just so cool that we like as Twitch streamers, we have this opportunity to like connect with people around the world and positively influence their lives, or like support them in things that they want to do, I guess.
Yeah. It's a privilege and a responsibility.
I'm speechless. Yeah.
You mentioned this because I've seen this. I said I've seen this before. I've seen it myself. I've seen it in you. I've seen it in countless others. A common motivator, which can be simply summed up in one syllable: spite. It sounds like awful. It sounds negative, but the phrase you used was, "How dare he say that to me?" And it seems like that kind of is pretty formative for you.
I mean,
because like throughout this whole interview, this podcast, whatever we're going to call it, you've been touching on the fact that you wanted to be validated and you wanted to be right about something that you knew you were right about, that you knew what you were talking about, and that it was a means to build up yourself and your own confidence. Like how much has that, like, quote unquote spite, how much of that have you carried with you all these years? Because it sounds like you channeled it positively instead of becoming that awful person. Like you said, you weren't okay back then, but clearly that's different now. And you probably still have that invalidation to this day, right? Do you still channel that spite when it happens, or is it something different now? Like,
that's a good question. And I feel like I have a lot of different answers with it. Like, I don't think I'm driven off of spite. Like in high school when I was like, how dare they tell me what I can't do? It was more like, how dare they talk to anyone like that? But especially me. But I didn't want to do a STEM degree back then. Like I said, I wanted to do photography and philosophy and whatever. Like I wanted to work for Nat Geo and travel the world and do landscape photos. But it was more just being told that I couldn't do something. I don't know if I carry that spite with me, because even like before, when I've kind of been like ostracized from certain things or something, that stuff actually hit me really hard. And it's not like I was like, oh, like I noticed that, maybe people have seen me as like a competition or something like that. Like I feel like I don't have that like competitive mindset. But I think, it's like, oh, like maybe I'm like a threat or something, and that's why people have like treated me this way. I think that stuff has hurt, and it's actually made me not pursue things or not be as confident and not go after things as much as I maybe otherwise would have, just because I didn't have like this positive support. I think, back when I was younger and it was maybe like not as okay, I don't know. I feel like maybe I more so needed that kind of positive support. So I changed how I thought, and I learned to be that for myself. And that's not to say I never had positive support or anything. I just think that there's, I think everyone kind of can carry things from their childhood or their upbringing or whatever. Like, therapy exists for a reason and all of that. But I think, I feel like I used to be a lot more negative and just like, oh, everything sucks or whatever. And I learned for every negative thing to think of like 3 positive things. And I learned to like genuinely smile and laugh at everything so I could overcome anything. And that was some of the best advice I actually ever got. Which is from one of my World of Warcraft friends. Just shout out to you. But
nice.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think having more of like that positive mindset, and it's not like toxic positivity. It's just like, oh, I can do things, and like having a better like inner self-talk to myself, I think helps a lot too. So yeah, I don't know. Like, why after a decade, why haven't I stopped? Why have I continued to do this? I think, I don't know. Like, I don't think things have always been like super awful. It's not like I am dealing with misogynistic people every single stream or something like that. Like I've, before I graduated, right? Before I graduated, I was just streaming, for fun. Like as I had always done. And it's just something that's brought me a lot of joy and has been a huge passion of mine. And I guess that's why I kept doing it. Like, I don't think anything would make me stop, because it just brings me so much joy. And like connecting with my community and talking about space and playing video games is just, I don't know, I just feel so privileged every time I get to stream on Twitch. Like, I just love it so much. Like, it's never changed. It's never been like, oh, I'm over streaming, or like, even on days where I'm like, I am not feeling super great. Like, I don't know, maybe I won't stream today. And I streamed anyways. I was like, oh, I feel great. Like it helps. Like, I don't know. I really like it. So, yeah, I forgot where I was going with that one, but
Well, it sounds like you found your own motivation, your own discipline and motivation.
I guess so. Yeah. I hope all that made sense.
I mean, it does to me, because I can relate, because I never had any external support of any kind. Like, I still mostly don't. So I get it. Like, other than my community, right?
And I support
but like beyond
you.
that, I know. Thanks. That's a different
I'm
interview.
sorry. That was such a like thanks, like a dismiss thing. No, I know.
I don't know how to take compliments, so it's just.
Yeah, I'm sorry you've like experienced that too, though. Yeah.
Yeah. You brushed up against this topic, and I know it's been a big thing for both of us. You are one of the most successful people on Twitch, like metrics wise, community strength wise, the impact you're having on people, etc. And yet you frequently struggle with imposter syndrome and downplaying your own accomplishments and skill sets. Why do you think that is?
Where did you find this data? Not to prove your point, but
where did I find this data?
Where are you getting this data? One of the most successful people on Twitch? Dude, what? No.
Approximately 80% of all streamers are not affiliated or partnered.
I mean, I guess out of...
If you are averaging, I think it's 20 to 50 viewers a night, you are in the top 1%.
I do remember that stat. Yeah.
You are able to do it full time while doing something you're passionate about for a long time. Yeah. So I think it's more than just a stat. I think it's just objective truth.
I do feel very fortunate. And I'm extremely grateful. And I feel like I get really cheesy on my stream all the time, talking about how grateful I am. But it's because I genuinely am. Yeah, like in my head, I still feel like I'm a streamer with like 20 average viewers, because I was for years and years and years. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But
right, it's different
than how I've been experiencing my stream more recently, as you know.
Right.
And I don't know if it's always I don't think it's always going to stay that way. Like, you know, I've had some time on like the front page and stuff recently, which is like so cool and so surreal, like nearly streaming 10 years. I never thought I would ever be on the front page. And I've had that opportunity now, which is so cool.
I'm still waiting for my day.
It'll come soon, Finn. I hope so. I hope so. But yeah, like it's really surreal to me. But it's also like, yeah, I'm sure those numbers or whatever won't always stay. I shouldn't say that. That sounds bad. I'm like proving your point.
Yep. I would say so.
Okay, what was your question again?
Why do you do that?
Why do I minimize my accomplishments?
Yes.
And have imposter syndrome. I mean, I think imposter syndrome's always there. And I think part of it is just because how I've been treated in the past, of like not being enough or not being good enough. I think that rubbed off on me for a long time, which is awful, because I was always like, oh, I'm never going to let someone else's opinion or whatever, you know, but like, I guess it happened enough where it just kind of did. And it affected my self-esteem. I do think everyone has imposter syndrome, just to normalize that a little bit more. Like I've talked to people in who are like software engineers who are in the industry, but who have like, you know, some of like the not, I don't want to say the best jobs, but like even really great jobs in that, you know, and they still have imposter syndrome. I think everyone handles it and has it to some point. So I try to accept that it's just a part of life. But I also don't want to like always feel like a huge imposter or something. I don't know. I think in science, a lot of people, it's all about credibility and like what research you've done and like, you know, do you have your PhD? Well, if you have a bachelor's, you can't do research or you can't do this. And my degree is not even related to what I talk about now for the most part, because I talk about astrobiology and I would love to apply it to that. But, you know, I think that's, and like I don't know, like I have been doing it for a long time on Twitch too, and it was different. Like now there's a lot, and even at times back then there was really cool scientists who had like legit weight, you know, who worked in the field and could talk about things. And now like the science and technology community has grown a ton, and there's a ton of science, like actual scientists, which is awesome. And I love to see it, and they're all wonderful.
Yeah, you were on a panel with some of them.
Yeah, it was super fun.
Speaking of one of the most successful Twitch streamers, Moo, you were literally on a panel at TwitchCon.
That was a big goal
about science communications.
That was definitely a big goal of mine. But I mean, that panel was like, at least I think initially named like scientists on Twitch, which I'm not. Like I'm a science communicator technically, you know, so it makes me nervous. Like I don't want to like come off as like someone I'm not or something. And maybe it's just the field, or maybe it's my own, like, you know, whatever past stuff that I've like internalized. But yeah, I've been trying to work through that stuff and like get over it, or not get over it, like not like that, but been trying to more so like put it behind me and like, you know that I do have value and I do have worth. And there is something really special about my streams of just having like more of a normal person who's really passionate about this, who's not like really, really jargony or something talking about things, which it's not bad if people aren't like that either. But it has a different appeal, I guess, to some things. I do think all the other science and tech streamers are great, though. I feel like after I like listened to what I just said, it's like I hope that doesn't sound like I'm slandering someone, because there's no one in mind as I'm like saying this. Like I want to be clear about that. I think everyone's really awesome. I think it's just my own things and like things that happened a very long time ago that kind of affect, you know, just my own like self-esteem. I could go into things a little more, but I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, sorry. If you're not comfortable, it's okay. I mean, it's part of who you are, but
I mean,
the goal here is not to make you uncomfortable. It is to give everyone insight into you, though. So it's up to you.
This is something I've talked about on my stream, very briefly, though, not in depth, but for like confidence issues, I feel very fortunate to be in therapy. I don't think there's anything bad about that. That's why I'm saying it out loud. I hope I'm normalizing this or something for some people. I think it's awesome to work on yourself, and especially, you know, you're stuck in your own head. Make it a nice place to be. And I think everyone, like I said before, has some things that they could work through too. But I think one thing that's really helped my confidence is working through like just some stuff from a not good relationship that I was in the past. And I feel like that has kind of affected me in like a lot of different ways. And I kind of see it come out on my stream. And like I've mentioned it before on my stream with like my old computer and stuff like that. Like it was just this whole thing. And even then I was like, it's not like unvalidating. Like I wasn't making it seem as big of a deal as it was. And I had to be told that
you were diminishing.
Yeah.
Like
I was minimizing it.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
And I had to be told that, you know, like, yeah, being isolated in another country in an abusive relationship is not okay and would have a really big and like not good effect on anyone, you know? And
right.
I was like, oh, like, why did I need to hear that from someone? Like, yeah. So I think that in some ways has affected my confidence, just because I feel like I couldn't have as much of a voice in that, or like any opinion or anything I had was just wrong, or I didn't do something like the right way or something like that. And I think a lot of those kind of scars I've carried.
Microaggressions.
Yeah. And it wasn't like the most like worse or like worst aggressive thing ever. And I think that's the weird thing about it, because you think of like an abusive relationship or something, like, I'm sorry, this is a heavy topic. I should have done like a trigger warning. But, you know, I think you think of an abusive relationship and you think of more specific things. For me, it was the tiny little things that built up over time. And I don't think it was intentional on their part either. But it's just, you know, continuously talking over me, or, you know, like everything I do is wrong, and being really argumentative and all of this stuff. And like, I don't want to sound like I'm like trauma dumping or anything right now. And I'm definitely feeling a lot more okay, like about this whole situation. But I think having that kind of stuff happen to me, just being in that situation, like I've noticed that, you know, that's still some of like these scars that I carry, and like this self-esteem stuff that I carry. And since I've been able to work through it a bit more, and it's not like it was this huge thing or whatever, but I mean, okay, it was. I'm still minimizing it. It's not like it was like something that affected me.
No, I understand.
Every day.
I understand. Yeah. You're saying it wasn't like one huge impactful event. It was a build up over time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's not like it has affected me every single day of my life, where like I'm like, oh gosh, I can't get over this or something, you know, but like it definitely affected my self-esteem in a lot of ways. And I think kind of just how I act in some ways too. So I'm grateful to have like, you know, worked through that and be feeling more okay about it. But yeah, I think it's kind of weird, because it's like hard to notice that you're in it, I guess, which is, I think,
you can't see the forest from the trees, right?
Yeah, maybe. So I don't know if that will help anyone, or I don't know. But I think that's a big part of like kind of my confidence and stuff. Although I feel like I'm getting better.
You are, yeah. But I've definitely noticed it over the last year.
Oh, thank you. I've been trying.
I'm still gonna call you out though.
Please do. I think it's helpful to have friends, especially like you know, who's like, no, like, look at this. Because sometimes we can get trapped in our own little mindsets or whatever, and like feel like we're not good enough. And it can be hard to take a step back and be like, no, wait, I am doing something really cool, or like, I am good enough. Yeah. So thank you, Finn.
So, okay, let's move a little more into the platform itself.
Ooh.
What would you like to see Twitch and other streaming platforms do to improve SciComm and combat misinformation?
Ooh. I mean, I would love to see Twitch bring the Science Week back that they did in 2018.
Tell us what that was.
So I mean, it's just kind of like Science Week overall, like, yay, science, but they had Cosmos, like Carl Sagan's Cosmos, play like 24/7 on Twitch.
Oh,
and that's
cool.
where the Carl Smile emote came from. And Andrew Ann, who's Carl Sagan's wife, like went and talked on Twitch, and she did a whole Q&A. She actually answered one of my questions about science communication stuff, which was really cool. But I think just doing more stuff like that. I think I feel like Twitch has been doing a good job overall. Like, I think the discoverability stuff that they've implemented more recently, especially like recommended streamers, have been huge. I think a lot of people never thought to look for science communication or like the science and tech category. So having that has been really helpful. I never like, oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, even I guess there's a lot of things that they could probably do for a lot of different categories. I don't know if there's as much bad like misinformation spread and stuff on Twitch, because that's kind of down to a streamer and their community, and that's kind of their rules. And I think as long as it's not like dangerous or really awful, then like, you know, that's on the streamer. I think it's awesome when other streamers though mention to people like, where did you get this information? Or like, oh, did you Google that before sharing it? Right. So shout out to all the streamers out there doing that. I think for other platforms though, misinformation spread is rampant. I mean, I'm sure in some ways it is on Twitch as well, but it's not. I feel like a lot of the things on Twitch, a lot of other streamers aren't talking about like database T discoveries or like these specific sciencey things, right? I think some platforms have implemented the stuff where like people can kind of tag a post as like misinformation and explain why. I think that's good. I think a really big thing. Ooh, people are going to hate me for saying this. I think a big thing is not monetizing that content, but then that would go through the line. Oh my gosh. And Twitch needs to ban the flat earth stream permanently. There's a flat earth stream in the science and technology category. And they need to, I shouldn't even said that because I don't want to bring attention to it, but oh my God, just go report it. Twitch needs to ban that. Why is it a thing? And I think they do every now and again, and it like comes back. Ugh. But I mean, that kind of draws the line with what I was about to say of like, how do you define the line of what's misinformation and like what's free speech, right? And like on Facebook, for example, you see a lot of like AI generated images, which are just obviously AI generated and just complete BS. And the people running those accounts are making money for sure. They get a lot of views. They get a lot of likes. They get a lot of laugh reacts too, thankfully. But I think not monetizing that kind of content would be good, but then you could argue for like not monetizing actual science communication stuff too. Like, where do you draw the line and how do you define that? I don't know. That's just one idea that I like more recently thought of is like, I think a lot of this stuff is maybe monetary based. I do think some people intentionally want to spread misinformation and they actually do genuinely believe in it without realizing maybe that it's incorrect, or they think that they're brilliant and everyone else is dumb or whatever they think. I don't know. But I think money could be a big factor in that too. So I think that's one way to combat it, but also definitely having, I mean, gosh, people could probably implement some sort of algorithms using like machine learning, large language models, AI, as the buzzword is, to actually detect some of this stuff and maybe flag it before it really gets out there as like, this looks like it could be AI generated image, or this looks like it could be not super factual or something, you know what I mean? I wouldn't want that to accidentally maliciously affect someone's content or something though. But I do think more needs to be done to combat misinformation. And I think it's hard because it kind of can teeter the line of free speech and other things. But it does definitely have a negative effect.
It's interesting because the idea of using AI language learning models to combat misinfo when they're frequently used to spread it, it's fighting fire with fire. I know this is way off topic, but I personally wonder how the hell you would even do that. Like, I've seen it happen. Like, I've seen people, I think they were on Reddit or some other website, invented a character in like WoW, and they just started posting about it en masse on Reddit. And suddenly we start seeing these AI blogs writing about this character as if they actually existed.
I've heard about this. Yeah.
So it's like, I could see that. Like, so I wonder, like, maybe there's some sort of crowdsourced method that they can utilize to fight this. It just seems like it's a battle that'll never end.
I mean, yeah, I think with everyone having access to the internet and everything, like, anyone can just make something up and post it. But I think maybe, I mean, a good way to combat it is just have like what's the word, like a global mindset shift to be more scientifically based. Yeah, that's not going to happen. But you know what I mean? Just like having people more into that. And like, I mean, yeah, you could fix some education systems that have gaps and things that aren't, you know, fully explaining things, or that are lacking like information and stuff. But I mean, all of these are just really big issues. It's all intertwined, and it's not something that has a simple, easy fix. I feel like everything is putting a Band-Aid on something that's not, like, it's putting a Band-Aid on like a huge leak or something, you know? But I do, kind of going back to what you said about like the AI kind of stuff. I feel like there should be ways to detect images that might look like they might be more so generated from AI. Like, you know, there's already like facial recognition software and all of that stuff. Like that's using similar things. So I feel like, I mean, similar quote unquote things. But I feel like they could do something that might, I don't know, running it. I mean, that would probably take a lot of work, and it wouldn't get them a monetary benefit. So once again, why are they going to do it, right? But I think that could be a cool company idea, though, to just, for all the social platforms, to like write something that can go through like maybe a lot of different images on the internet, and it could see if someone else's image is like kind of part of that, or maybe fully, I don't know, that would be really hard to do. That would take a long time. Sorry, I'm just thinking out loud. I think I think there could be ways though to maybe identify if, I feel like they can do that, like ways to identify if something looks like it's made from whatever AI thing, and maybe kind of give it a little flag or so. I don't know. I would just love to see less misinformation spread, but I think a lot of the times people do think it's more legit. And that's more of a failure on our education system as a whole.
Yeah. Do you think it's going to get better or worse in the coming years?
I mean, that might depend, but I want to say better, Finn. I really want to say better. But I feel like logically I have to say worse. Unless they come out with these things that would help it. I don't know, like I do think AI stuff is cool, but like, you know, they can do like AI videos and all of this other stuff, and you can use it for awesome, cool things, but you could also use it, you know, to make a, I don't know, like a picture of an alien that they found in Mexico or whatever, and like make a video of a ship crashing, and people are just going to believe that, like, without knowing any better. It's almost like we need like commercials on TV during the Super Bowl or something to like help people understand this stuff a bit more, especially some of the older generations who might not like know a bit better too. Because like I mean, yeah, like all of this stuff I feel like would just be really over a lot of people's head, even in our like generation too. But you know, I think there's a reason like some of my aunts and uncles or whatever have just like fallen to that stuff because they saw a video on a thing or something. So yeah, I feel like unfortunately, I think it might get worse over time, just because I don't see enough positive change happening to correct the things, to help with it, I guess.
It goes back to profit, doesn't it? It's like, if it's not going to make them money, are they going to do it? Yeah, I get the answer. It's not an uplifting answer, but it's the one I tend to agree with.
Yeah. And like maybe something will happen where it'll change, you know, like if Facebook decided that they were just going to flag misinformation posts or something, kind of like I said, then maybe that would change a lot. Or maybe they already do that. I don't know. So like some good steps could be made, but I do also feel like it's just maybe part of it is a lack of education. Maybe part of it is a lack of like knowing any better, which I don't blame people for. Like, you don't have to be uneducated to fall for some misinformation. I think we do it every day. Like when we look at article headlines or something and we don't know, or we're not going to take the time to look at it.
Clickbait.
Yeah. Like most people who see an article aren't going to read the full thing and they're just going to look at it. And so I don't ever blame anyone for like, you know, quote unquote falling for that stuff, I guess. But yeah, I don't know.
We don't have the answers yet.
No. Hope.
Much like science and the universe and exoplanets. We're not there yet, are we?
No. I hope that's, I was just going to say, I hope that science communication does help though. Like even while like some of this misinformation stuff is more rampant, I'm seeing a lot more science communicators and just people being able to talk to other people and people with different backgrounds and stuff on the internet too. And I hope that that's helping as well. And kind of giving people this foundation of knowledge and understanding that they maybe didn't have before also. So
the open communication is the two-sided coin. We get the good, you get the bad with the misinfo, but we get the good with access to correct info.
Yeah. It's just how do you decipher between those? And I think a lot of people struggle with that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That should be like basic education. So you do these things to combat this on Twitch. You know, as we've touched on tonight, talk a lot about how combating misinformation is a big thing for you on Twitch. Many people don't really understand Twitch or what it means to stream for a living. Do you struggle to relate that to others, and like how do you go about it?
Like, do I struggle to like explain what Twitch is to other people, or?
Yeah.
I don't feel like I have to do that very often. And maybe that's because I'm just not reaching out to people or whatever. Like, I think if I were to reach out to like specific companies or something, I would probably have to explain it a bit more. But I mean, right now I usually just kind of stream on Twitch. And people just come in, I guess. I feel like that's not a good answer to that though. If I were to explain Twitch though.
Yeah.
I mean, gosh, it's just the coolest. Like, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of games on there, but there's something on Twitch for everyone. You could do, I did kind of have to explain that actually. When I was on Planetary Radio, I kind of explained Twitch. So yeah, there's a lot of gaming. There's just pretty much whatever content you could want. And instead of, you know, watching TV, you get to watch someone that you can talk to and interact with. It's really, really interactive, which is what makes it so amazing. And there's a lot of fantastic streamers and communities on there too. And I think it's hard to explain this kind of stuff to people who aren't like, who either aren't gamers or who don't have like online friends from games. Because for me, Twitch didn't seem super weird because I have a lot of World of Warcraft friends who like I actually consider my closest friends in my life who I've like never even met, which sounds really weird to people. But there's something special about having like these, and it's not like Twitch streamers have like these crazy online connections too, because you know there's like parasocial relationships and that can go both ways. But you know, like talking to people on the internet or whatever, like I don't know, if people like watching TV, I think they would like watching Twitch and finding something that they enjoy and being able to like have this conversation and like have you know, like have the community and stuff. It's really awesome. I'm trying to think of what else I maybe missed in your question.
I don't think you missed anything. You did talk about something that I see a lot is the whole parasocial nature of those like connections that you make online. Mm-hmm. What has been your experience with those kinds of parasocial relationships? Oh man.
I mean, I don't.
Said it all without a word, huh?
Okay, yeah, we'll just leave it there. No, I don't know what to say. I mean, honestly, I think it's something I struggle with too sometimes. Like, I don't want to be like the opposite of it, or like the streamer who like, thinks we're friends and we're not or something. Or like even with other streamers, I get nervous being like, oh yeah, my friend. And it's like, maybe they're more of a colleague. Like, are we friends? Is that like, I don't mean friends like best friends, but like, like, I don't know. Maybe I overthink things. I would never want to have anyone like feel uncomfortable or anything like that. But it's more so people like I know and I respect, and like, people on Twitch I think get us a bit more since we stream. But and I have made a lot of actual like awesome friends on Twitch. Like I consider you one.
Oh, well,
but
hell yeah, same.
but but I think as far as I think I'm lucky to have not dealt with as much parasocial stuff on Twitch. Like I've gotten, the creepy messages and people hitting on me. I feel like that's a bit different, maybe. Like Twitch is not a dating site. Like I feel like I have a lot of chat rules to try to get around this kind of stuff. Those people aren't going to read it anyways. But yeah, I mean, like
yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, like I've had people DM me to ask me out to, be like, oh, you're awesome and all of this, and I'm like, you really don't know me. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm pretty similar on my stream to how I am in real life, but it's very different. And I think sometimes. Oh, what were you gonna say?
Is it like different? Because like at least for me, and I'm asking if it's different for you the same way. Is it just a different level of energy?
Maybe a little bit, yeah. Like I do feel like I turn it up a bit, especially if I'm in a group in real life. I feel like I'm like more quiet as well, and I just kind of like hang out or whatever. But on my stream, it's just me, so like I can like I can do whatever. But I think sometimes people need to pause and take a moment and know that especially for streamers that do it full time, like this is their job. It's no different in a way than, like going to a coffee shop and hitting on the barista in there or something, when you don't even know their name because they're not wearing a name tag or you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think parasocial relationship stuff's hard because like, I can understand that, like why people would feel that way, like watching someone stream. But I think it's important to like take a step back and be like, this is their stream. Like, this isn't them. They don't know me. Like, they definitely don't know you. And yeah, I think having like good boundaries and stuff as a streamer can definitely help with some of that stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have like a lot of really great, well-spoken things to say about that. I just don't want to be hit on.
Same. I think we all see it, honestly. How do you, because you talked about that over the last year or two, you've gotten a lot better at enforcing your boundaries. How do you go about that? And how would you tell others who might be having a similar struggle?
Ooh, vibe check bans are real. I think the vibe check is a huge one for me. Yeah, I think if someone makes you feel uncomfortable in any way, you can ban them and you don't have to say anything. You don't have to give them a reason. I always felt like I had to give people a reason or give them a warning or 2 warnings before I banned. Like I'd give a warning, then I would time out, and then I would wait, and then I would ban. That just doesn't make the best environment in a stream, or at least for me. I've noticed over time. And it depends on the situation. But yeah, if someone's making me uncomfortable, they're out of there. And I think like having boundaries just as a person is important. And I noticed that when I started enforcing boundaries, I got a lot of backlash, depending what it is. And those are not people that I want around me either, because they can't respect my boundaries. Like what? And maybe it's different. So it might take a minute for someone's like community. Like if you're really changing your boundaries, it might take a second, for your community to catch on and stuff. So you might have to like, don't expect an overnight change depending. But I think, for me, it was just being more confident and holding my ground. Like sometimes I would let things slide or whatever. And now it's like, no, I'm not going to. Like, this is my space. This is my safe space. And I want everyone else to feel comfortable and okay too. And I think before I used to give people a lot of benefit of the doubt and be like, oh, well, maybe you don't like realize it or don't understand it. And I think that was just making it harder for me as a streamer, especially doing this like as my job. I think that was making it a lot harder for me. So I think trying to like enforce these boundaries is important. Trying to think of like specific boundaries though. I guess it's probably more like person specific, because I know boundaries for me.
Yeah.
Like I never wanted people to like hit on me in my stream, but I feel like before, maybe if someone was like, "Oh, hey, beautiful," I would like let it slide or something and just be like, "Oh, whatever." But now I'm just like, no, don't do that. And yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like other ones. Like, I don't know. I had someone who was in my stream in like 2015 come into my stream like recently. So like 9 years later.
Oh, wow, it's a big gap.
Yeah, or maybe like 2017 or something. But yeah, like a long time later. And they were awful. And it made me be like, oh my gosh, did I, no offense to them, but it made me like I don't know, like they just, like just typical kind of like hitting on you or kind of like riding the line of like what's bannable. And some of my like women, I think one of my like women Twitch friends raided in and they like hit on her, or they said something, and it might not have been like, oh, are you single, or like, I don't remember. I think they did a kissy face emoji, and I was like, and I don't even.
That's kind of creepy.
No, it was
right.
extremely creepy, and like it made me uncomfortable, and I was like, oh, this poor girl, like, and I think for a long time it was like, oh, okay, like mess with me, all right, whatever, I can handle it. Mess with my friends, you're out of here. But now it's like, mess with me, you're also out of here. But for that situation though, like I gave them a mouthful and was like, here's why this is not okay. Like you've been in here, like you've been in my stream before. Let me explain some things to you. Here's why that's not okay. And then after a while, they got like all mopey and were like, oh, woe is me. And I was like, okay, now you're just complaining about like, and it just turned into this huge thing. And I was like, I just should have banned them immediately. And I found when people make you feel uncomfortable, or they're like kind of stirring up something in your Twitch chat, right? And you're like, I see this is going to go somewhere bad. It almost always does, right? Or like it gets worse. You think, oh, this person's going to get better next stream. Maybe they had a bad night. Nope. They're just going to bring the same thing back. So I think I've become less tolerant in a way, like not in a bad way, but just, like I can see it. I've been streaming a decade. Like I know this stuff when I see it. And I think just kind of trusting my gut on that. Yeah, I definitely banned that person, and they like DM'd me on Twitch being like, oh, like, and I noticed like previous DMs that they sent me years ago that now I would have just immediately banned and blocked them for. And I think it was like a confidence issue, or also like, just trying to make it a little bit more as a streamer, and maybe feeling like that's my existence as a woman on the internet, is putting up with this stuff. And it doesn't have to be that way, especially on Twitch when you can moderate your chat and ban people and like have moderators help you. So I feel like just because that was my experience, like, even being younger as a woman on the internet, it doesn't have to be that way now. And that's something that I've been learning and trying to get better at as well. And I'm grateful to feel like I can have boundaries and maintain them. And I would really encourage every streamer, no matter if you're a marginalized gender or like what, like it doesn't, every streamer should have boundaries and should have, chat rules and they should feel comfortable and feel safe when they stream.
That is some important words that I've been personally trying to reinforce to people, because we, when we stream or whatnot, we get other streamers that watch us too, and they go through the same struggles that maybe we did initially. That lack of boundaries, the parasocial trappings, as it were, not knowing when to say no. And I think a lot of that stems from people want to succeed and they think that they're going to lose their quote unquote viewers if they're, too strict with their boundaries.
I've experienced that.
I think what you touched on, yeah, it's a common tale. I think what you've touched on is that paradox of tolerance, right? Like if you're tolerant of all behavior, then you're intolerant, ultimately, because you're allowing negative behavior to screw with everyone else that's there.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see that you're doing that, and I think it's a good message to put out there, because I think more people need to do that too. Like, we're not required to let anyone just hang out or be there. We don't need a reason.
Yeah.
It's the vibe check ban is really important. It's good that you touched on that. It's nice to hear about that.
Yeah. Vibe check ban is huge. Like I can't even word it enough. And don't think, if anyone is watching this who's like trying to make something out of their stream, even if you're streaming just for fun whenever you want to, it doesn't matter. Like, vibe check bans are real. Like, hold your peace. If you're just even a little uncomfortable, like, time them out, just ban them. Do what you need to do. It's so important.
All right, let's go to a topic that you and I have both experienced, and I know others out there have as well, and maybe others still are curious about it. You were recently diagnosed with ADHD. So how has this knowledge impacted your life?
I mean, that's a big question. How has it impacted my life? It's giving me like understanding. I feel like it's giving me explanations for things. I don't know. Oh gosh. I mean, I guess I could really go into the question, how it's impacted my life.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess being diagnosed with ADHD, it definitely gives you that understanding, and it gives you like reasons. It's like you spent your whole life not being good enough ever. Oh yeah, that's another reason for my confidence issues, by the way. Haha.
Yeah, I was trying not to
no, you could have brought
lead the horse, as it were.
No, it's funny because like I know that, and I don't know, I think my forgetfulness brain just didn't bring it up. But yeah, that is a huge reason, because you spend your life just not feeling good enough. And like, it's not like I've always compared myself to others. That's not really something I do. Like I try to compare myself to myself. Oops, sorry, I just hit my mic. I try to compare myself to myself, and like, where I was a week ago or yesterday or a year ago or something, right? But you notice, as someone with ADHD, that you're struggling more than other people, or like you have to work twice as hard. Even in college, I remember a professor brought up a graph of how long it took people to like do an assignment. And I'm sure you know exactly where I fell on that graph. Yeah, bell curve, I'm nearly at the end. And no one recognized it in me, really. My family says that they did, or maybe, or, but no one brought it up. No one said anything. Like, I wish teachers would have, because I got that generic, like, you're really brilliant and you're really great at everything, but like, you just need to apply yourself a bit more, or like, if you just cared a bit more. And that was like, I feel like that was a deep cut, because I remember hearing that, like, if you just applied yourself or just cared a bit more. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll do that. And I carried that with me my whole life. Like, oh, I just need to try harder and I need to do this and do that. And I just had ADHD. So being diagnosed is like having this screen or like this filter or something lifted and knowing like, oh, okay, this is just like, like this is my existence. Like I'm neurodivergent. It's not that I wasn't good enough or that I didn't try hard enough. It's just my brain is different. And there's a lot of emotions that go with the ADHD diagnosis, and grief is one of them. And I can get a little bit into that too. But I mean, I think having that diagnosis for me enabled me to get medication, and that is life-changing because I can actually do the things that I want to do. And I think if people don't have ADHD, they don't understand what I mean by that. So I'd like to take a second to explain it. And, I think a big word is executive dysfunction. So when someone like has to do the dishes, or like, gosh, even if you want to play a video game, most people can just do it. But with me, I have to argue with myself continuously. I have to, like, sometimes I'm just scrolling on my phone, like, why can't I do this thing? And a lot of times that does lead to negative self-talk. Like, Moo, you want to play this game, like, it's relaxing, you enjoy it, like, why aren't you just doing it? Or like, Moo, your laundry has been on your floor or something for like a month, like, why don't you just, like, have a laundry basket too, to be fair, but you know what I mean? Like, it's like, why haven't you just done this thing? Like, just do the thing. And that's just one symptom of ADHD. And like having medication lifts that for me for the most part, where like I see a dish on my desk, or like, I see it in the sink and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll put it in the dishwasher. Oh, I'll start the dishwasher. Oh yeah, I need to do laundry. Let me just go start that. I have no words. Like that's how normal people live every day.
Yeah. It comes with that grief. It comes with that grief, and I think it also comes with anger. Because it's like everyone else can just do this.
Yeah. It's
because like that was my point of view. It was like you were talking about, like, oh, you just need to apply yourself. You need to try harder.
Mm-hmm.
And like we were put down all our lives because they thought we were just lazy or weren't trying hard enough. And the reality is that it was just quote unquote easy for them compared to how our heads work.
Yeah. It's rough. It's really rough. And I mean, yeah, anger is definitely another emotion too. So it's a lot. It's a lot. Do you mind if I share the first time I took one of my meds?
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's maybe kind of a good explanation for things too.
Sure. Walk us through it. Give us the viewpoint from someone who doesn't understand.
Yeah. Because like, I know I spoke to you before I got my diagnosis, and I was like, I feel like I am. And I didn't know for a long time, by the way, that like ADHD symptoms, like obviously there's a lot of overlap, but like, you kind of hear like, oh, ADHD symptoms in women could be different. Like sometimes men have like more, what is the word when you move around a lot?
Hyperactivity.
Yes. Oh my God. Sorry. That's literally like, oh my God. Okay. Brain. Like I struggle with my brain's filing cabinet, and you could see it, I'm sure, in this whole interview, but, yeah. And I worry that also makes me sound like I don't know what I'm talking about at times too, which is another struggle. And that's also like, the not just confidence, but like imposter syndrome stuff at times too. But for me, like ADHD. So yeah, before I got diagnosed, I know I messaged you and I talked to you a little bit. And, I think a lot of people are like, oh yeah, men are just hyperactive and, or whatever. And like women are forgetful and overwhelmed. And before I knew about ADHD being more than hyperactivity, because that's what I thought it was for a long time.
Yeah. There's a lot of old thinking about it out there.
A lot of people thought that. I remember like, I think it was like 2015 or 2016. I remember Googling to be like, what's wrong with my memory? Like, why do I have memory issues? Like, I'm in college, I should be doing good, but I had to take continuous notes on my phone. And it's like, if I didn't put something in my notes, I would forget it. And that was really scary for me. And of course, Google was like, oh, early onset dementia, nothing about ADHD. And
Jesus.
I panicked. Yeah. I was like, this isn't good. So I spent a while like wondering if that was happening to me, which is scary. And obviously I know that's a lot different than ADHD, but like, yeah. And I mean, it's not good to Google your like medical issues or whatever, as we all know, but it's scary because ADHD wasn't even mentioned, at least then for me. And I like remember crying to my mom, being like, what's wrong with me? Like, I can't remember anything, like actually crying, asking what is wrong with me. And so, yeah, fast forward 7 years later, when I got my diagnosis, the first time I took my meds, I remember I was in a car and we were driving somewhere. I wasn't driving, but I was in the car, like going on a ride to go somewhere and do errands. And I remember when it hit me, because it's not like this anymore. This was like the first time and that time only. So like my entire life, like I've kind of had anxiety issues, and I have always carried like this backpack. That's my anxiety. So sometimes the backpack is empty and you can't feel anything in it. Sometimes the backpack feels like it has a bajillion bricks in it. And that's when my anxiety is a lot heavier and I can feel it a lot more. But I always wear the backpack.
It's an interesting visual.
Yeah, I feel like it paints it really well.
It does.
Yeah, that backpack's always on me. When I took my meds, the backpack came off. And I feel like I'm going to cry because I like literally teared up the first time I took my meds because I didn't know what that felt like. I didn't know what it felt like to not have just a little bit of this anxiety. And it's not like taking ADHD meds like is super calming and amazing or anything. Like I'm just normal me now, but the first time I took it, I was like so zen, and it's not like I was like knocked out of it zen. And like I said, this was only like the first time I took it. But I was able to, it's hard to explain, but yeah, I felt zen. I felt like that anxiety backpack was gone, and I could focus and I could remember things, and I wasn't frazzled, and I wasn't like I was okay. Like the sensory issues I have, like I've known for a long time, I've had misophonia, which is like the hatred of sounds that are really annoying, like people chewing with their mouth open. Right. I could handle that better too. Like, and I just remember like sitting in the car, looking out the window, being like, is this what normal people feel like all the time? And that made me so emotional because that's just not fair. Like I went through my whole life that way, and this is just how everyone is. And then let alone when I was like actually at home, like around all the things I needed to get done, and I was able to just like magically do it without arguing with myself for, however long. Sometimes that argue goes on for weeks, by the way. Like, yeah, it's correct. I mean, it's life-changing, and I feel very grateful that I was able to get that diagnosis and that I'm able to have medication to help me. And I feel like I can better like achieve my goals and do things that I want to do now. But I mean, yeah, I think the first time taking my meds, not having that anxiety backpack, and like just, I don't know. It's hard to describe. And it definitely came with a lot of emotions. Like part of me was like, oh, this is like, oh my God, like I'm actually kind of like relaxed and I'm doing okay. But then I was like really sad and grieving because this is how everyone else feels and it's not fair. And I was mad because that's not fair. And I was mad at how everyone in my life has ever treated me because of this. And I just thought back to very specific examples, and then I grieved a lot over like, once I, kind of settled into the diagnosis a little bit more too, I grieved the fact that had I had medication and had I known, like my experience in college would have been a lot different. Like Yeah.
That part's hard to explain because that's what I was thinking. It's a grief of the what if.
I'm mourning
Like-
what my life could have been still.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I changed majors, like I said, into computer science instead of astrophysics.
Right.
Like there's a bit of reasoning behind that. Like I was a little nervous about job opportunity, whatever else, but like I really struggled with math. Like I was good at like doing physics. I was good at the math and physics, but just math classes were hard. And it took me a long time to like do things in school, even when I was focused and when I was enjoying it. And I'm still grieving that because it's like, wow, I probably like maybe I could have done that. Like it's hard. And I think sometimes people wonder why I'm, doing space science communication on my stream, especially when it's not related to my degree. And it's like it's a fine question to ask, and I'm never upset at people. But sometimes I worry when I talk about it on my stream that it people can tell how much it still hurts me, because I do feel like I gave up on all of my goals and all of my dreams that I really wanted. And I know I can go back to school and like, maybe I can go and do a master's or something in astrobiology, and I can apply my programming skills into it. And like, I'm so excited and happy. And like, I feel really grateful that I'm able to stream full time on Twitch right now. Like that's the number one goal for me. And it has been for a long time. But like the fact that I didn't do like, I feel like a big part of why I changed majors was like the undiagnosed ADHD that I didn't know at the time, because I struggled and I felt like I was too dumb for it. And I felt like I was not good enough for it. And I know that's not the case. And even back then I knew that's not the case, but it's like, I didn't have it in me. Like I didn't have like the spoons to do another semester, or like to keep struggling to barely, not to barely do things. Like I got A's in my classes or whatever, but like, it's just that
Damn,
took
nice work.
Thank you. Like that, but that took me like twice as much work as my peers, essentially, as someone with ADHD. And I think that was really hard. And even thinking back to like taking tests and exams, like, someone sneezes or someone coughs and my train of thought's completely gone. I was always the last person to leave the room on a test. And I thought it was because I was a smarty pants who went over every problem again and made sure I did everything right. But no, it's because I had to redo problems because I just immediately forgot what I was doing.
How much do you think ADHD had an impact on why you so strongly seek validation?
Probably pretty strongly. I think, gosh, I feel like the validation thing is maybe, like, I feel like I don't always seek validation, but now I'm like, Finn, maybe you're onto something. Take a note from my therapist. I think maybe it's because, like, I haven't been recognized.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Part of me is like, no, I don't.
It would be worth talking to them about, though, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe they have a different insight that both of us don't.
I could see things, like, from my childhood and from my whole life coming up in it. And even from that relationship that I talked about before, like, coming up, like, just not being seen or not being, like, understood maybe in some ways, because I'm different.
Yeah.
Like, I'm neurodivergent and my brain works differently than neurotypical people's brains. So I've always been treated a little different, or, I've been called lazy, or just been like, oh, we'll just try harder or whatever. And like, this isn't always like a verbal thing. Sometimes it's like in actions, or just how people treat you, or like in like, the tiny little things. I think with ADHD, since I think, we've spent a lot of our lives not feeling like we're good enough, or feeling like we've messed something up, or that we're underachieving or underperforming, or whatever we've been told or have been made to feel. I think that validation is important, and I think everyone deserves to be like validated to some degree, and to like be told that they're worthy and that they're doing a good job, and to like have their needs met and to be fulfilled and stuff. And yeah, I think ADHD has made that difficult in a lot of ways, just because we have continued, like, I feel like I have continuously failed to reach my goals and do the things that I want to do. And I feel like maybe that showed up in my stream a lot at times too. And it's something I'm still working with, you know, but I'm getting better at it. But yeah, like just whatever goal, it's like I could never quite do it. Like, why even bother writing goals and making a plan when I can't do the things, or I can't bring myself to do the thing? And I think just those continuous failures over my life have made me just not feel good enough in a lot of ways. And I think that's something that, you know, you kind of have to heal with and realize that that's in the past after you get diagnosed with ADHD as well.
So it sounds like, just in hindsight, it's had a big impact on your whole life.
Yes.
And framed a lot of your relationships, your goals, the things that you have done, the major moves you've made. Let's look at now, let's put it under the microscope now and look at the past just year.
I was diagnosed like a year ago. Yeah.
Yeah. You have the diagnosis, you started medication, things started changing. Now, what does it look like?
I'm still struggling. But I feel like it's getting better. I feel like it's going up. And I actually feel like I can achieve my goals, which is huge. It is really exciting. Like, I feel like I'm a powerhouse and an unstoppable force. And maybe it's because I am like a really ambitious person and I have like a lot of cool ideas and cool things. But before, it's like, even when I really love it, it's like I had to wait for this, like, you can't choose when to hyper focus. It just happens. So like I had to have the hyper focus happen at the right time to like work on these things. Or, you know, I just felt so exhausted because I didn't have like the spoons or the capacity to keep doing stuff. And now I feel like I'm able to do that stuff. And that's obviously life-changing. And I feel like it has presented itself in my stream too. And given I've also been graduated from college, like, I love that I had to get diagnosed a few months after college, but that's part of the reason actually why I thought I had ADHD, because I was like, I should be applying for jobs. Like, I should be able to do things, and I couldn't do anything. Like, I wanted to get a gym membership and go to the gym, and I couldn't bring myself to do that. Like, ADHD hit me harder once the anxiety of college was over. Like, once that stressful situation was done, like, ADHD just took over. And so
you lost urgency, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't have to do anything. And so, yeah, that was interesting to experience. But like, yeah, after getting my diagnosis, it's like, you know, there's a lot of emotions, as we spoke about, that go into it. And I've been able to kind of work through those and kind of make amends to some degree, you know, with things in the past, or like, and you know, work on my confidence and stuff too, because I do think it's very much hand in hand with my ADHD stuff. I feel like I've been able to be more organized for the most part. I'm still working on that. But I think, yeah, gosh, I'm trying to like think through the past year. Like, even if I'm not like taking my medication or something, like I feel like it's still beneficial to have like had that diagnosis and to have like known about it. But obviously the meds definitely help me to like be like a normal or whatever. Like, don't compare yourself to whoever and say like normal's not a thing. I don't like that word, but I feel like it's made me be able to function and do the things that I want and that I need to do. So that's big.
What would you say to people out there who are struggling with neurodivergence or think they might have it?
Like, I know getting a diagnosis is a privilege, especially in America. If you're able to seek that out, and there might be some other like ways to do it that are cheaper or something too. I'm not too sure. But if you're able to do that, I would say go for it. I mean, if you're struggling with it, you know, like look up look up some symptoms and look up things that you can do to help. Like, you don't always need like medications or whatever to do all the things. Obviously they can help, but there's a lot of things that you can do just knowing that you're neurotypical and that's how your brain works. And you can kind of like implement that stuff into your life. And it's not like, oh, buy a planner and keep a schedule. Like that's never going to work for me, but that might work for other people, right? So sometimes it could be trial and error. But I think more so just like having positive and kind self-talk to yourself. Don't make yourself feel like you're not good enough because you've been made to feel that way your whole life. Don't try to internalize that because that's just, I don't know, like, I feel like that's just that's just us like internalizing everyone else, you know? So I feel like I think it's good to be aware of it, see what you can do, but like we have had enough people in our lives, I'm sure, or maybe I'm just speaking way too personally, but you know, just make us not feel like we're good enough or not productive enough. And a lot of that does come from inside. And I think it's so important to change that self-talk and to tell yourself that you can achieve your goals, even if your past data doesn't show that, you know, like just go for it and keep trying. And yeah, be your own biggest cheerleader, I guess.
What are you most proud of accomplishing in the last 10 years?
10 years? Like my whole time
10
on
years.
Twitch? Or just in my life? I don't know.
Just in your life. 10 years. It's the same window.
Yeah, right? It's so weird. I am proud that I graduated because that was a struggle. Like that was a lot. I thought about just dropping out of school and streaming for full time. Which hey, maybe that would have gone all right. I am also really, really proud of having gotten partner on Twitch. I feel like that's a big achievement. It doesn't define who you are or like your quality as a streamer or anything like that. So I don't want people to feel that way. But for me, it was a personal goal of mine for a really long time on Twitch. Like I streamed for 9 years before I got partner. So it was a big deal. I think
if I'm not mistaken, you got it on the first application.
I did.
You beat the
Take
odds.
that, Dan Clancy. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I was excited. And I think it's because like my anxiety and like everything just made me take a bit longer on my application. So they probably had more months of time to look at the data for. Because I'm a perfectionist, which maybe is also, I think that is also ADHD. I feel like ADHD is like every personality trait you thought you had is just ADHD. I see memes about that. And sometimes they ring a little too real. Maybe not, but
there's a lot out there that resonates.
Yeah. I think my perfectionism made me, you know, spend a bit longer on the application, so they had a bit more time to like see the data and like that it kept up. But I am really proud of that. But I think like the thing that I'm probably the most proud of is like how do I even word it? Just like my community and everything on Twitch. Like I'm speechless that people like to hang out in my stream and nerd out about space and learn about astrobiology and nerd out about that and like hang out while I play games and do whatever else. And like I feel like I have such a cool community and I've built such a cool thing. Like the science and technology category exists because of me, in part at least. Like obviously not solely me, but like I've been really trying to own that recently. Like I did bring new content to the platform and I think that's really cool. And like I'm trying to be more proud of myself for doing that. And I feel like I'm just speechless of like, yeah, like just what I've built. Like I started streaming because I thought I was funny and because I thought it would be it would make, like a good YouTube video or something. So I was like, okay, yeah, we'll stream. And it turned into something I would have never, ever, ever have expected or thought of or anything. And like, it's just brought me so much joy, and like having like the positive impact that I've made on members of my community, I think is, like we were saying earlier, is like one of the biggest compliments that you can get as a streamer. And like knowing that I provide like this safe space where we can all nerd out over the things we love, and that like we can feel accepted and seen, and also learn and like combat misinformation and uplift women in STEM. Like I would not have ever expected, at least back then, that my stream could turn into something like that. And I'm so grateful for it. And I'm really excited about it. And I feel like that's probably my biggest achievement. And like, the size of your community, like it doesn't matter in that point. Cause like what I've been doing, I think is just, I'm really proud of it. And I'm just so grateful. I feel like I haven't explained this well. I just like, I'm struggling to find the words. Like,
words can't convey everything, but I don't think you struggled to answer that.
Thank you.
If you could, what would you say to a 10-year-old Moohoodles?
To a 10-year-old Moo?
Yep. Little Moo.
Oh my gosh. I'm trying to, sorry, my timeline, you're gonna make fun of me. My timeline for how old I was is like what games I was playing at that time. So I'm like, what year was it when I was 10? I think for me that was like GameCube era, but I don't think I had a GameCube at the time.
I think that's correct, yeah.
I don't know what I would say. I think if I told her that I partially play video games for a living, she would just lose it. She would be so excited. She'd be like, no way. Oh my gosh. In middle school, sorry, am I just telling too many random stories?
No.
Okay. So
I wouldn't ask the question if I didn't want stories.
Okay. Well, I just wasn't sure because I feel like I've been like rambling on answers, and I'm like, oh, maybe you like just want me to answer that and not go off on something else.
You can answer it however you want.
Okay.
I'm not here to dictate how people, be themselves effectively.
I'll give the ADHD story answer then, because when I was in middle school, which I know is after you were 10, but we had like a career day where we're supposed to dress up as someone that what we want to do for a career. And I didn't know how to dress up as like someone in the video game industry at the time. Like I didn't know, there was no education on that. I was like, I want to test video games for a living. Woo. And so I put on my headset. But at the time it only had one earphone, like, and the other side just like clipped. And then it had like a little headphone. And everyone made fun of me being like, oh, you're working at like a fast food drive-through, or like, oh, you're like doing something else. And I was like, no, I want to be a video game tester. And like everyone made fun of me. And obviously video games became cooler after that, but or years later. But I remember that, and I feel like it's really cool because I don't know, like video games have always been such a big part of my life, and I've always really loved them. And I know I do also a lot of science communication content on Twitch too. But I just think it's so cool that the platform exists and that I'm able to do all of this stuff. I think 10-year-old Moo would be excited and like would have held on to that fact during those moments where people bullied her in later years or weren't super nice to her about this stuff, and would have been like, I get to do what I love later on, so whatever. I would probably tell her to, I don't know, I think I would probably tell her to like, I'm trying to think of like what good advice, I don't know, like to keep her chin up and be okay, I don't know. Oh my God, I could have told her that I had ADHD